Rejoin. I saw it happen. Yes,
bummer.
I'm just waiting for the picture to come on. Oops. And probably move away from the executive session side because we're not in executive session right now. There we go. Okay, you're all set.
Very well. All right. Welcome to the Berlin Select Board open meeting. Today is Monday, February 24th, calling the meeting to order at 6:02 over there in the corner. Later on, our FinCom will come join us, but as of right now, we are going to hop into an executive session, much like our last meeting. So let me read this. The board will enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Exception 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator, and will return to open session to further conduct its regular business meeting. So, roll call to go in. Mr. Harkins.
Aye.
Chris?
Keith, aye.
Oh,
Did you make the motion?
Motion, second, between,
like, yep. All right, so,
I don't think we heard Chris.
Keith, aye.
aye, oh, Bailey, and Stone eye.
Yep.
All right, so we will be back as soon as possible. Thanks for your patience.
And while we're in executive session, I don't know how you test, like, how the speakers could be louder.
Yeah,
so that we could-
he's fiddling with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I thought so.
All right.
there's three. Okay, I'm gonna survive. Fab shutdown. And you take the Intel, yeah, I mean that. I'm sure the taxes that they were taking off of that was. Yeah.
Yeah, the blackness fills the room. Hey, as long as I got them out of my house, I didn't care who it. I'm sorry, that was not what I saw.
It was certainly not. You were quite perceptive, Heidi.
Our fishing person is here. Yes, I'm much better than the way that I presented it last time. What?
Yes.
Yeah, I was getting ready to like do a leaping save if somehow she got knocked. We don't want it falling over.
No. All right. Are you ready to go back? See when you're ready. All right, so we are back to open session. Thank you very much for the time away in executive session. So we are going to, I will ask you guys to sign in a minute. There was a big echo.
We're all muted.
All.
We're all going.
With our microphone, right?
Once again, technical difficulties, but let us go on. So first up on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have 3 sets, January 6th, January 27th, and February 10th. Is there a motion?
I know there's feedback. I want to make sure we can hear Chris. Because when we did our earlier part, we could barely hear her. And I want to make sure that she can participate. No, is Chris saying something?
Oh, she
She's,
has to
she
be
is,
re-promoted.
she's an attendee, so she needs to
Yep.
at least be panelist.
Thank you for checking that. I didn't realize that when she went to the exec,
Right.
she has to come back and
Right,
be
she has to leave
promoted.
and did, right.
Sorry about that.
Here's Chris.
All right. So where I left off was our number 2, the approval of minutes, January 6th, the 27th, and February 10th. Is there a motion?
I would make the motion, although
Yeah, I'd make the motion.
Is there a
I-
second?
I will make a second, but I do have one thing I wanted to ask Dee about.
Okay,
Dee, did I mention that there's in the January 27th minutes, there were two paragraphs that are exactly the same on the 5-member select board article?
all right.
Sorry, Chris, you couldn't hear that. She didn't catch it before, but she'll take it out.
Oh, okay. I did want to mention to you two too that I would have loved to give some feedback on this before you sent it to the town meeting warrant, since I've worked with the 6-member board, a 3-member board, and now on the select board, a 3-member board.
Well,
Yeah.
we have time to discuss. It's coming up under old business under annual town meeting warrant, so we can talk about it then.
All right.
All right, so motion and a second, no other changes, all in favor? Oh, by roll call, because, yeah, so Scott,
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye. All right, general public comment? We got nothing? All right, hearings and appointments, we are a wee bit behind, but we will pick up. So our first hearing at 7 o'clock. Oh, do I have to read something? About this?
Public hearing
Yes,
notice.
the public hearing notice, is it in that?
Hang on.
The clerk's probably supposed to read it.
Feedback, I got a sketch. And I got
Yep.
a,
There's a sketch, a petition, and a feedback form in the folder.
so we don't have,
It's on the website.
all right.
I'll get it for you.
Town of Berlin website. Apologies for the delay. Come on in. All right, I got it. So here we go. Public hearing notice. Under the provisions of the general laws of Massachusetts, chapter 166, and any additions or amendments thereto, please be advised. That at the meeting on Monday, February 24th, 2025, at approximately 7 p.m., the Berlin Select Board will consider a request to give permission to Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid to locate poles, wires, fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. River Road, National Grid to install one SO pole on River Road beginning at approximately 0 feet northeast of the center line of the intersection of the Rotary and River Road and continuing approximately 850 feet in a northeast direction. National Grid will be installing one SO pole approximately 850 feet from the center of the Rotary along River Road, Berlin, Mass. Location approximate as shown in the attached plan. We have the petition, if you have any question. Is that good? Okay, so, Mr. National Grid guy, Javier, how are you?
Give me one moment.
Hasn't
I
been
need
voted
to
yet.
promote him.
All right.
It's coming on in.
Hi, can you hear me?
There you are. Hi,
Yep.
how are you?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Apparently not,
Apparently not.
possibly.
Can you come on? Can you come on?
Hear me or not?
Oh, well,
Oh,
Yeah,
just, let me just, I don't have him muted. Let's see. Oh, that's mute, unmute.
it's been an evening of technical difficulties.
All right.
I don't know.
Javier,
Hi,
can you hear us?
me yet?
Yes, we can hear you.
The question is, can you
He
hear
can't hear
us?
us.
He can't hear us. All right. Well,
Max?
Oh, and
there's no chat.
there's no chat where you
Right.
could tell him that either.
Hold please,
Hi,
1 minute.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. I can't hear you. I don't know what's
Yep.
wrong with this time.
Just hold 1 minute.
How do we mouth that we can hear him?
The big,
On a piece of paper. Hold
yeah, technical issues. Oh, that's yellow.
That's
that
yellow,
one.
that's not gonna work.
Watch. Yeah,
Yes, because
Chris,
she was.
well, no, we can hear Chris, but maybe
Javier,
that, Chris, can you see if Javier can hear you?
Cameras
yeah,
behind
the
you.
camera.
Can he hear you now? Javier, can you hear me?
Somehow his settings on his mic. I mean, we can hear him, but.
It would be speaker, or just set it as a speaker.
Speaker.
His volume might be too low.
I can try to.
Um,
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, but can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
right.
Oh,
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think it's
us.
my, oh, was it? I think it was my
I
headset,
know.
actually. I shut my
Yeah.
headset off and I'm going through the computer now. Apologies.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
no worries.
Yeah, basically, we
Okay.
just, my name's Javier Morales. I represent National Grid. Here to request the approval of one brand new pole location at, like you mentioned, at the, about 850 feet up from the rotary. The new pole will be 6-1, and this pole is required to feed a new school that is being built at that location. That's all I have.
That's
Uh,
good.
The autism school?
Yes, that's all right. Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Oh. All right, so the autism building at the
But-
Rotary.
And
No, no,
feedback is,
I think it's the autism school. Would it be the autism school down River Road?
Oh,
That
this is a brand new school. I don't know if it's located somewhere else.
It
No,
might be in the pit.
I think it's just not built yet. It's going to be on River Road down
Yeah,
further.
that's probably the one in the pit.
What? Yeah, this location was an existing home. The home has been there for ages. There was a big barn out there. You can't miss it. And what they did was they started remodeling the inside of it.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a little stone house that's there, which is going to be used.
Yeah, but I don't think that's where the school is.
That's what they told me.
Other town, Worcester
Oh.
Sand and Gravel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is that that's the pit where they plan on doing everything, but I didn't think that there was a house in the pit.
The Spooky World house is next door. It sounds like
They're
he's
talking about
describing.
Spooky World House, but yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
but it's right down the street.
I know that the owner is a doctor, and they told me it was going to be a school there. I don't
Yeah.
really know much beyond that. You guys must have that on in the assessor's office, right? Don't they have to apply for that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
the building
it's in the
permit
Worcester Sand and Gravel.
Oh, this isn't their Worcester Sand and Gravel.
Well, maybe they're putting
Worcester Sand and Gravel is up the road in the back, right? There's a big gravel pit back there.
right.
That's not where this location is.
I know.
Oh, okay. Oh, you-
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I could go on Street View and maybe put a picture of it here if you want it.
Well,
Yeah,
we don't-
because Fred had sent in some feedback and he said last year they added 7-1 at the same address for the main house.
Yeah, that's
He has
correct.
no objectives and will mark their drainage once a dig safe number is received. And
Right.
Eric also wrote back that there were no issues.
Yeah, that's correct. They had a few changes in there with their electrician and their ownership, and they couldn't make up their mind on what they wanted to do out there. But then, I don't know, a few months ago, I met out there with a bunch of people, and they decided they didn't want to use that pole 7-1 location, so we're going to take that pole out of there as soon as this one's installed. But yeah, I can follow up with them before we install the pole. There is a drain line right near there.
Do you want to wait?
I think
Or are you good with Fred and Eric saying yes?
I mean, it's taking down a pole and putting another pole not far from it. If there are issues with the use of the new property or building, that's not a National Grid issue. I have no problem, supporting the poll.
Chris?
I think that somebody needs to make sure that that's where the poll needs to go in case there's an error.
I'm pretty positive that's where the poll is going. This,
Well, if
I-
it's
I-
for the school, then it's not going to be near the school.
okay, well, I mean, I don't know exactly what this building is for, but I
It's-
met out there with about a dozen people
Okay.
and we walked all over the property.
It might be the museum.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, you're correct, Chris. I just pulled up 100 River Road West is the museum for the Stevens Family Foundation.
Right.
You
So-
actually look on Street View, it looks like there's a non-used pole sitting about where you're putting this new pole. So the new pole is probably
there.
not far away from it.
Okay.
I
School.
mean, either way, whatever they're using it for, it still needs power,
Yeah.
Yep.
School, museum, whatever, right?
right? Yeah.
All right, so now we figured out where it's going. Thank you. Is there a motion or any other?
I would move to
questions on
support
this?
the poll.
Chris,
Second,
any other questions? Hearing none. Again, by roll call, all in
Uh,
favor?
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye. All right, thank you, Javier. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night and, sorry about the
You too.
headphone fiasco over here.
Okay.
Thanks for all your
No
help.
worries.
Yeah.
Thank
No
you. Good
worries. Good night. All right.
Bye.
All right, so next up on our hearing and appointment is a consideration of an application for change of management from Highland Common Liquor doing business as Highland Wine and Spirits 22. Oh, do I have to close the hearing?
Yes.
All right, the hearing is officially closed at 7:13. How was that? Kind of, sort of, will it work?
Take a vote to vote.
All right.
Sorry.
Can we take a vote?
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye. There you go, better?
Much better.
Okay, now, here we go, to consideration of the application for change of manager.
Oh,
Come on down. At least you're here. We won't have any technical issues. We cannot promise that there won't be other issues, but there will not be technical issues. So,
Okay.
what do you got for us? Welcome.
So thank you, welcome, thanks for having me. The owners, wanted to put, I've been there since the store opened. And the other manager wasn't able to cover as many hours as they had thought, so they wanted to put me on there in case there's any issues. And I am there over 50 hours a week, so. I've been in the business my entire life and have worked retail.
Awesome. I have no,
Just
It
saying,
is.
I'm in that place often. Does that make it a conflict of having that place?
no, because if you're in there as often as I am, then I think we're both good. All right. Chris, do you have any concerns, questions?
No,
All right, do you, any issue?
No.
No,
All right.
I would make the motion to support the change of manager. Nice to hear that it'll have consistency with it when it happens, and that's my motion.
All right, and a
second,
second? All
Yep.
right, by roll call,
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Thank
See?
you.
You
I
are
hope
all
all-
set.
I hope all your meetings go this efficient.
I know. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, now, we're catching up on time. We're going to have a joint meeting with our FinCom people. Thank you for coming to discuss and potentially vote on the FY 26. So if you could call your meeting to order, that would be awesome.
I call to order Berlin Finance Committee.
All right. Well, we have what? There's one more meeting on Wednesday of budget, somebody to come to
Yep.
FinCom.
The financial departments are scheduled to go before FinCom Wednesday. That would be treasurer collector, accounting and assessor. But I did put together a brief overview that is in my town administrator report, and rather than saying it later, this might be the time if that works.
That works.
All right. So I have made my preliminary budget recommendations, as you'll see in the packet. And in fact, upon meeting to discuss and look over fuel, oil, and electricity today, I can report that we're cutting things very razor thin, but we can go down another $5,000 on each of those based on where we've been trending for the last 5 to 8 years. So the reductions that I'm recommending are closer to $65,000 instead of $55,000. But we are still finalizing numbers in a few key departments, including employee benefits, that's health insurance, dental, et cetera, data systems, and the salaries for the town administrator, fire chief, and police chief. At this time, we are estimating just under $580,000 in additional available funding for FY '26. There were a total of $3,474,528 dollars in new FY '26 budget requests, as broken out as follows. The town requested as a whole an increase of $343,757. There is an Assabet increase, which is on a per pupil basis. There's another 7 students coming, plus the minimum local contribution from the state has gone up substantially. Which, if I can take a moment to briefly mention, this is a big problem because we're going up. The state's minimum local contribution is going up far higher than Prop 2.5. So it's creating a permanent deficit, if you will. We're just going up over 5%. So this is really a significant problem that I believe the state needs to fix. And one of the things that we were actually discussing today, I want to put together this information that I prepared and send it off to our state legislators, because I think they really need to be aware of the fact that we are constantly going to be playing catch up. And it's not just us, it's school districts across the state, because if they can raise the contribution above what we can raise for 2.5, but we don't have a lot of new growth, then there's no way we're ever going to be able to catch up without an override consistently every year. And that's what you're seeing in communities across the state. So the Assabet increase is a 23.6% increase. It is $163,965. I do apologize, I forgot to put the increase on the town side in there. I will get that for you. And the Berlin-Boylston preliminary budget that our second version of the budget that we received has $2,966,806 in increase requests, which is a 35.1% increase. So at this time, the FY '26 budget has a $2,716,314 deficit. The town has $1,247,675 remaining in excess levy capacity. If all of that excess levy capacity was used, a $1,474,252 deficit still remains. This deficit consists of both operating and capital needs. So that would actually require a debt exclusion and an override on both the town meeting and the town election ballots. The Berlin-Boylston Regional School District will vote their budget on March 11th. And they have indicated willingness to continue discussions, particularly in regard to how the capital needs can be spread out over multiple fiscal years for Berlin Memorial. The Assabet number is a final number, and that has been voted, and we have received our assessment letter. So that's just my brief overview of where we're at.
Could you do me a favor for those watching at home and those watching on playback? Could you either put up the tab on the Excel spreadsheet that shows that? Because I want people to look at those numbers and to understand where we're coming from and to understand the limited options that you and we have. And feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. Feel free to chime in on yours, but I've thought about this all over the weekend. Option A is just to give in and say, school, here's what you want. Here's what the budget is. And did you like your increase last year? Oh, the answer is no. I think FinCom, Scott, you said it a couple meetings ago, based on that number that we were looking at, people could look at 4 times whatever that number was that we received in January. So that's option A.
Yeah, I would just clarify, there are, I think there's a little more detail needs to go into this. I think we should put it up because unfortunately that includes the capital items. So there is more caveats. I'd be hesitant on, right, I mean, looking at
Yep.
talk about what all the numbers are unless we kind of talk a little bit more, I
Okay.
think some of the details.
Except that the details for the school budget don't matter. They can move things from any fund they want to any other fund they want, and they were quite clear last year that it is one number we vote on and one number only. And so the individual numbers aren't really debatable.
No, it is, because, I mean, first of all, we're having discussions with the school committee, or with the superintendent and the new finance director, okay? So they have provided this nice breakdown of what's the operating increase, and there is also what they put down as capital needs. They have not broken down these capital needs over time. Okay, right now it's just one big capital number. When they were in, we spoke to them about this, and yes, they know there's things that they're not going to be coming forward with the full capital budget that's listed there. Now, the real question is how will that be spread out over time? And that is a key piece. And of course, it doesn't help the fact that unfortunately our capital planning has to be able to move forward because we don't have a free cash number to work from. So they point out like what is the number one priority in terms of the capital item that they would have to do. But we need to understand how that's spread out. And that is a huge part. I mean, the operating alone is just under $1.2 million increase. And then the total capital, do you have the number there, Kristen? Because you had said the total number on the Berlin-Boylston was what, what was it?
I think it was like 2.7.
Right.
1 point.
But I did say that they will be voting their budget March 11th. We will be having discussions and that capital number will be spread out over multiple fiscal years. So the Berlin-Boylston capital number right now is $1,395,919 for Berlin Memorial Capital, and Tohoto is $492,565.
So 1.8-ish.
And for comparison, last year, the capital was 297,000 and change
See, and
total.
that's my concern, is that if you have capital at 1.8, and last year we only gave 300,000 peg math rounded up. We know that there is no way that we are gonna fund 1.8, so I don't want the message coming back of, oh, look, we reduced our capital by 1 point something million dollars when we're all sitting in this room and we know that there was no way that 1.8 million was ever going to be funded. So I don't want that to be the story of, look at what we've done. We've cut the budget when they were never going to get it in the first place. So I want us to like control that narrative instead of that coming back at us for that. So we're looking at potential tax increase. Option 2 is what I'm calling the draconian method that, and Scott had alluded to this last time we met, that there's a lot of opportunity for us just to go through and go and decimate the town of Berlin for services and people. Not that anybody wants to do that, but again, if we have to hit that number, what are our options? Part 3 is a little draconian and maybe a little tax increase. And then part 4 is that what Boylston did last year, we go back and say, here's the number, deal with it. And if they want an override, they stand up on the floor and then we stand up behind them and say, the reason that we're not pushing forward is because of these exact reasons. I mean, are there any other options out there that we're looking to close that $1,474,252 million deficit?
Well, there are a few options. I mean, you haven't come in all the choices here. So one is the capital items, which are big. I mean, one of the options we have is also for those things being a debt exclusion. And those are a little bit more palatable in the sense that debt exclusion, you will have obviously impact on your taxes for how long it would need to, for that, how long that debt would be, but it's also something that goes away. All right. So the capital items have that opportunity with the debt exclusion. When you take the other pieces, you're looking at, particularly the operating budget. That's, the number that they have the increase is 1,177,000. the ASBIT, 163,000. You've got town government. Did I write down 343,000? Did I get that number right? So when you add up all those numbers and you look at the, new revenue of about 580,000 and the excess levy, they are coming in pretty close to each other. Okay, so there is the thing that you wouldn't necessarily have to have a levy override, but you'd be taking everything with the present numbers here. And like I said, I'd have to add them up to see exactly how they lined up, but you'd be taking everything with a massive tax increase compared to the last 2 years. And then you would be sitting there going, you would then need an override almost certainly next year, because if you haven't been able to live come close to living in the 2.5% increase, that's the only thing you would have, and you would need a huge levy override next year. All right, so.
But both levy limits and debt exclusions don't change the fact that those are just mechanics to allow us to spend too much money. Those aren't the change of the fact that the taxpayer still pays all of that increase, whether it's within the levy limit, over the levy limit, debt exclusion, all of that is still paid by the taxpayers.
Correct.
None of that would change how much the taxpayers would have to pay. And that's the bigger question I'm interested in, is how do we make this affordable to taxpayers?
Yeah, that's the difficult part, because if you look at the new revenue, the growth is very low. It's only projected at 200,000. And I mean, we were just going back a couple of years ago, we were at growth of like 350,000. So that's a big drop. The 2.5% is $390,000 of the new revenue. It makes new revenue with a 2.5% increase on the levy, which is an increase still in the property taxes. So if you're looking at where we are, like just the, you would need another 2.5% 2.5% doesn't quite cover the town of Berlin plus Assabet. You would then, you're a little bit short there. Then you're looking at another 3 times of that. So you're looking at a 10%, approximately 11 increase to cover the rest of the operating budget of the school. So therefore, you're down to a 10% levy increase, which is a huge tax increase, and you'd be taking everything from the excess levy, and you haven't touched capital, right? But we don't know exactly how capital's spread out. So that is huge, because last year, 2 years ago, we had a 4% increase. Last year, because again, as things have shifted around between residential and commercial, and also the increase of last year, we approached nearly 5%. And so this one would be, taking everything of the increase that was from last year and doubling it. And that's not even talking about handling the capital items. So those are the numbers you're talking about, which are huge, right? I mean, those are huge property tax increases.
Well, and the way they finance their debt, which is not how the town of Berlin does. The town of Berlin likes doing our debt as equal principal payments. So the amount you pay every year goes down a little bit. I don't know what their scheme is, but their payments go up every single year. So they're asking for $73,500 more dollars just to make debt payments.
Yeah, this is also I think a black eye in the schools, previous administration. And so basically they had 2 bonds. I mean, the main bond, which they had been reflecting to the town of what the amount of debt that we were paying. They had a second smaller bond that for some reason they didn't even assess either us or Boylston in it, at least the last 2 years. But they paid the bond.
But it's an interest.
Right. Or they did miss one interest payment now?
They missed an interest payment
Okay,
on one of the bonds.
on one of the bonds. Both years or just 1 year?
For FY 24 and FY 25.
Well, both years they missed the interest payment. Okay, that's different than what they had indicated when we first met them in December and brought, that this was first came to light. I kind
That was what was in their email. I can pull it up.
So at the
Okay.
end of the day, what are we gonna do?
right, but I just wanted to clarify, at least on the bond. So I mean, like I said, it's definitely a black eye on the previous finance on the previous administration, because one is, while they were, looking for more money from the town, first of all, they, could have, should have been assessing us and Boylston, that particular bond, and yet they were able to, at least from the principal standpoint, make the payments from their revenues that they did have. Of course, that's probably put them into a more worse financial position. That's why it's gone up. It isn't because the bond is necessarily going up, it's because they weren't, did not have that one listed for the last 2 years. So that's why the numbers go up. So just want to clarify that.
So it also went up in fiscal year 23 to 24
Yes,
and 24 to 25. So this is the third year in a row it's gone up.
it goes up that way as well. It does, it goes up every year.
It was up the previous,
I mean, not to
Sure.
the same
Yeah.
number, but it has gone up. So every year it has gone up. And so we're saying we gave them more money last year than the previous year, and they still didn't make their payments with it.
Correct. So their debt service does go up until we hit 2026, 6/30/2026, and then it looks like it starts to go down. It's a bizarre debt schedule. It was 1.270, 1.271, 1.270, 1.272, 1.272. It bounces all over the place. So it's a little bit strange. And they did miss the one interest payment on both of the bonds. So I did just send that email out to the FinCom and the select board, so you guys all have it. But
And
it does go up as well. I'm sorry, Scott. It does go up on the other debt service. It goes up from 269, 268, 271, 273. It's really weird how it bounces around every year.
and that we had to do a last minute revote last year, right before the floor of town meeting, because they also had it wrong and had to readjust it then.
So,
I'm looking at notes of a late March meeting that said we had to revote on that number because the number they gave us.
the schools number.
yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, it
School
was
start
not a-
was wrong.
but it had to, I mean, the main bond though had to have gone down, because the new one that they're added in for this year for Berlinshire is $95,000. And yet the increase is only 73,000. So the other main bond had to have had a slight decrease from the previous fiscal year to this fiscal year. I don't know where the,
It could be, the general,
But
that if we only had this big of a bucket to increase to pay the schools every year, they're eating into that bucket by misallocating,
Well,
not
yes.
the misnegotiating the original bonds. Because you could do like you do for your own house, your payments are the same all the time. Or again, what Berlin has done is the same principal payments, so that the amount you go every year, they've done something odd that every year you pay a different amount, which then also doesn't yield to a lot of great faith. And again, it eats into the bucket. They have to acknowledge that doing that is eating into the bucket of money that we could be giving the schools.
yeah, I mean, the big part is that they've completely missed that one bond. Which again is definitely in something you can't, give any excuses for.
so we can't go
Right.
back and we can't finger point and we can't blame. We are looking at a 1 point peg math roundup, $5 million deficit. And I,
Again,
as a taxpayer, and that's if we use up all the excess levy
right,
capacity.
again, the 1.5 is just what we need to do extra. All of it, any penny we spend more.
Yep.
If it's $1 more, has to come out of that. Whether or not we do it inside the levy, outside the levy, debt exclusion does not make any difference to the taxpayer at the end of the day. They don't care if their tax bill goes up 20%. They don't care that half of that is debt exclusion.
No.
And 20% of it is an override. They just care that they have gone up. And so I think it's on us to figure out how to finance it when we come to a number. And I think we need to come to the lowest possible number to keep people in their homes.
Correct, and I agree, because if you look at comments on social media, when people did get their tax bill, they were outraged at the amount that it went up. And unfortunately, as you told them, as we told them, because of the budget voted last year, it had no place to go but up. So I don't want to do that. Again, that is unfair for the residents to take that burden from the schools. So staring at the 1 point rounded 5 deficit, levy capacity totally sucked dry. What do we do? I mean, where are our options? As is, so sad, too bad residents, deplete services, people, whatever in the town, so sad residents. Deplete some services, people in the town and increase your taxes, so sad residents. Or going back to the school and saying, we only have this much money.
I think some of the burden has to be placed back on the school. I think it's time to make some cuts. I think we're in a very sad and frustrating time that, and again, we know that many other communities are in the same position. One local community, I'm getting the same vibes as to kind of what we went through last year with, you know, kind of like an us against them situation. And it's really sad that what defines a community or what defines a town has been whittled down to the school rating and your property value.
Yep.
And seriously, that's what makes up a community, are those two things. Everybody else in the community, every other entity doesn't have value unless it has to do with the
Right.
school.
Yeah, there was an article in the Community Advocate about Westboro mulling possible cuts to their FY 26 budget. And they're saying that if they sucked up 450,000 in free cash, which we don't have, their single home family bill would be like $969. Otherwise, it would be well over 1,000. And their town officials, Westboro's, are trying to cut 130 million. Let me repeat that again, 130 million municipal operating budget. So obviously Westboro's a ton bigger than we are. But Berlin is just, I just want to point that out, that we are not alone in this. And there are other towns that are doing it worse than we are, but we've got to do something. We just can't stand up at town meeting and say, here's a 15%, here's a 10% increase. Go
Scott?
without. Yes, Mr.
Can I say something? Excuse me, I had to clear my throat.
You need a lozenge? I got one.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I would just like to point out that it's not just the schools, it's both school systems.
Correct.
Assabet has gone up significantly as well. And so I just don't want to make sure the conversation is always about BBRSD. It's both of them have gone up
Well,
significantly.
and a per pupil basis, has Aspet really gone up? Because they've added 7 more students, which is 20% increase.
Yes,
in
but it's-
students, but only a 17% increase in their assessment.
Well, there are increases and they were presented. But it's the dollar amount, isn't it, that we're talking about? I mean, whether it's
It is, but those
7 more students or
Those are
not.
7 less students going to Berlin Regional School. I mean, I think as a whole, they might have more students they had last year, but
But another way of looking at it, I forget what the number is for Assabet, the increase.
163 and change.
Okay, so 7 students,
And the minimum,
that's the increase? I mean, come on.
and the minimum local contribution going up from the state, which he said is sort of unavoidable.
It's both school systems have become much more expensive to run.
Right.
Yeah, just, I just want to clarify a thing
Scott.
and ask it.
Chris has her hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the easiest way to compare the two schools is what is their operating budget increase, the percentage. That would be the
Okay.
easy way to compare Assabet and Tohoto or
Okay.
the region.
Yeah, I can answer that. It's unfortunately it's accounting that makes this number look deceptive. So the total, let's see, make sure I have the right Assabet one. Was this the?
That was last week, so.
It was, so what's listed there as a budget increase shows it being 11.1? I think is, it was 11 point something. Now, the problem is that's a total Assabet increase. The problem is it's
No, just the
confusing
operating,
accounting on, was it?
just the operating budget?
Yes, well,
Do
I
you
think it was-
include, you not including debt or capital, you're
I
saying?
don't know, did they include, let me see.
I have
The
it broken
operating
out.
budget, the previous one I got is 9.8, but it was, I think, 11.1. Let me just find, oh, here it is. The operating is 11.1%, page 2 of their thing. Now, it's a little deceptive because they've been taking more students from the member towns. And so we're getting hit with the fact they don't have the out of district tuition they were bringing in before.
Right.
So they've reduced the amount of money that they have for out of district tuition because they don't have it. That was $1.6 million. The way it would be applied to the budget, if you, 'cause how much they actually spend in operating is not what the budget number is. They actually spend more than the budget. I mean, this is even true with Berlin Boylston. So what happens is the 1.6 million that they last year that they, or this present fiscal year, that they basically added it to the health insurance. So when you looked at the budget number, the budget showed the health insurance being $1.6 million less. But they were still paying the $1.6 million, but paying out their internal revenues from the out of district tuition. So what happened here is, of course, now you don't have that 1.6 million. The health insurance shows up on the budget number, and that number is what's used to get the 11.1% increase. The actual increase is about half of that in terms of real money that's actually paid out. But on the budget, it looks like 11.1. I mean, you see this same thing with Berlin Boylston, where they contribute to, for example, the revenue come in for school choice because they have more coming in than they have going out. They use that to offset other line items. So the budget number looks smaller, even though there is more money being actually spent. So
Right.
those are
about-
difficult numbers, and people need to handle them properly and not, try and politicize them for in ways that they aren't really represented.
And how's the increases for Tohoto and Berlin Memorial operating?
So what is the percentage increase?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do I have the percentage numbers? Let's
Chris,
see.
are you referring to the overall a budget increase or just for Berlin?
I guess just for Berlin, because that's what you're doing for Assabet. Well,
No, what I just talked about
actually,
for asset that was the
no.
total budget, Berlin share.
right. I mean, I think it probably might be the right thing to do is to just give the total increase for the region, I guess, because you're doing that for Assabet also. It's just easier to compare it that way. But most of the time, over my tenure, there hasn't been more than about a 3 or 4% increase in the operating for Assabet. But, times change. So I just was curious.
Right here, they showed that Tohoto operating, let me just make sure this is level service. Doesn't indicate that, I believe this is just the operating. Shows Tohoto up 7.89%. BMS shows an increase of saying 4.38%. In district-wide, 3.35.
And then how do you get those numbers? Because if I look at what we assessed last year versus what they're asking for, I get numbers that are double digits on both of those.
Yeah, because I believe the problem that we have here is BMS. They list the BMS,
I show BMS last year at 4.2,
Okay.
$4,271,277.
you are looking at the assessed number, not the budget number. You're
And
looking at what the
so-
line number?
Right, so I look
Yes.
at what they assessed last year, what they were going to assess us this year, because that's what the taxpayers pay.
Right.
And so assessed last year was $4,271,277. The proposed assessment this year is $4,993,452 for a difference of $722,175 or a 17% increase.
Yeah, it's probably what,
I mean,
Oh, right.
you're right, it's not on those slides
right.
because you have to dig into what they assessed last year, what they assessed this year. So that is not, you're right, in the slide deck that they presented. The numbers are in the slide deck.
Right, and that would be on the spreadsheet. I
Right.
don't know if
And
Chris
what's
is.
also not in their slide deck is the number of students. Because you're right, Cliff, if you want to see a student to student, and Berlin Memorial is easier. I remember being on FinCom where one of the first things that was presented from the Berlin, or from the regional school district really was how many students were Berlin and how many students were Boylston at Tohoto, so you could get the percentage allocation between the two, and I don't see where that percentage is in that slide deck.
Yeah, they did not have the, that percentage with the number of
And the
students.
regional agreement says that it's a percentage as of the students as of October 1st. And so you would think that even by January 1st, you'd be able to know, because on our time on FinCom together, you know, there's this ebb and flow of how much is Berlin versus how much is Boylston. And sometimes the increase goes up a lot more. It is artificially inflated because, like it was for Assabet, there's more Berlin students than Boylston students. So their budget could go up by 0, but Berlin could still get a large increase because we have more students there. And I don't know how much of this increase is based on more students and how much is not.
There's 222 students at BMS.
Mhm. So that remained the same. That's
Well,
what count was last
yeah.
year.
You know what, I just Googled it and it came up on, public school review.
Right.
So pre-K through 5, 222 students. And then it breaks it down.
Yeah, but specifically looking for Tohoto, that's where the
Yeah, that's-
percentage breakdown comes down to. We've got the full ownership of BMS.
So my suggestion is that this year we cut the taxpayers a break in Berlin, and do what we can to keep their taxes from increasing so much, because they've increased greatly over the last 3 years. And it's up to the town officials to do that.
Right. And so to cut $3 million from the town of Berlin budget, we would have to get rid of the transfer station, get rid of the council on aging, get rid of the library, get rid of the rec committee, get rid of the town administrator, get rid of the fire department, and get rid of the police department. And if you get rid of all of those, you still are $100,000 short of covering the Assabet and Berlin-Boylston Regional School District increase.
So, you know, it's the schools who need to take another look.
And I think we could probably cut something out of it, because I agree, if we're asking the schools to cut, we should cut things. I don't think the list I just read you is viable to cut.
No. And you have a TA bylaw, just so you know, so you can't cut me, I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure there's some rules that also say we should have police and fire departments too.
Agreed. Well, they also are contracted employees.
One thing I just want to clarify, Kristen had mentioned part of it, and that was the minimum local contribution. So when you are looking at the Assabet numbers, we basically won't be able to cut anything, because Assabet does work at the minimum local contribution mandated by the state. So they can't go any lower. The increase in the minimum level contribution does hit us at Assabet, because obviously they've been staying at the minimum local contribution. So when that goes up, we have to go up that amount as mandated by the state. Berlin-Boylston is way above minimum local contribution. So the minimum local contribution increase there is not causing us to increase. I think, we're at, approaching like double that for the minimum, over the minimum local contribution. So that's not an impact there. So Assabet, of course, we're looking at $163,000 increase. There is no way to push back without violating the state law, and we'd be, we're one of 7 towns on that.
Yeah, because I did the same thing and I went through on my own. I went through and I looked at the budget, and I've got animal inspector goes, maybe you call another town, gas inspector, yeah, they work on receipts, but you call another town. Plumbing, same thing. Our voter keypads, those go. Any stipends go. Maybe you only have 1 Board of Health member. Maybe you get rid of Veterans Affairs. Maybe you get rid of historical supplements. Maybe you get rid of cable. I mean, that was my B. That was Berlin the draconian way. We wipe everything out in town and we're still short. And how fair is that? Hi, yeah, I'm sorry, you can only come to the town offices. They're open from 8 to 8:30 on Wednesday, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. There you go. What do you do? What do you do? You're hurting.
Make a stand.
Residents either way.
I think Chris was
What
trying to
was that,
say
Chris?
something.
Yeah, I just said, make a stand. That's what you do. You make a stand. You come together and you make a stand.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, because I got a question for you later.
Okay, I was just gonna say, and just to be clear, the summary that I gave is completely based on the numbers. It's not
Yeah.
meant to be political in any nature. My job is to be apolitical. I did mention the fact that, the capital needs need to be spread over multiple fiscal years for Berlin-Boylston, and that there is a huge percent increase for Assabet as well as Berlin-Boylston. Is 23.6% for Assabet over what our assessment letter was in FY 25, and it's 35.1 at this time with the capital, which they have said they will discuss for Berlin-Boylston. I think it's just really important to note, though, that as Scott said, even if we use all the excess levy capacity, which still raises taxes substantially, we do have that huge deficit that's still there. And I do feel that it is our responsibility to get the information out to the taxpayers about how this is going to impact them when they vote. And as I mentioned, it would likely have to be an override and a debt exclusion, because there is some capital in there. It all depends on where we fall with regard to free cash. But I just, I'm concerned because we have had such substantial increases in the past couple of years, and we do have a higher than state average senior population on fixed income. So it's looking at kind of that totality, and the fact that it's a little challenging since I think the demographics in Berlin and Boylston are a little bit different. So there's different needs, there's different, wants, there's different income levels. And I think that's where your real challenge comes in.
Not putting you on the spot at all, and you may or may not have this number.
Feel free.
And feel free to come back because, oh, by the way, you guys are invited to all the rest of our board meetings through March because we're gonna be duking it out for more weeks. Is there a number if you were to take away all the supplemental requests, again,
Yeah.
draconian the town, and is there a number that you could get to that you could say to the school, we only have $20. That's it. Is it possible to get to that number? Similar to what Boylston did last year, where they said, you have $500,000. Deal with it. Can we get to, not the same number, obviously, but can we get to a number to say, keeping our stuff intact so that we're not just shutting the town down, basically? Is there a number that we can get to that we say to the school committee, here,
This is how much you have.
this is how much.
That's
you
what they
have.
do in Boylston,
So,
which we'll be
Yeah.
talking about later
Yeah,
on.
Alright.
I just want to clarify, and the Boylston position is a little easier because they are at their levy limit. So they basically, this is the number you have. Otherwise, you have to go to ballot. What we saw at town meeting last year, the school committee, and supporters of the school did everything they could to not go to town ballot because that was a proposal at the town meeting, the original town meeting in May that could have, but they did everything they could to kill that. So in our case, though, obviously there's a bigger number they could still go to without going to ballot. They'll have to go to ballot next year. They can't avoid this moving forward, but it is a little bit different position that we have here than what Boylston said, right? And for all I know right now, we haven't had the discussions yet with Boylston. Maybe they are looking at the need for an override because they are right at the edge. They only had around less than 300,000 of excess levy capacity. And they're again, 2x our size. So that's very tiny.
and they have a lot more commercial than we have, just zip down 140 and there's FedEx.
So, but that's also what helped them in the past, but they've lost that new growth. I don't know if they have something else that has suddenly come in that they're projecting good growth for, but last year, yeah.
Also on 140.
So, but that is say a little bit, making that comparison between us and Boylston, what they could say. So they just, if the people want to vote in a large amount at town meeting and go to the maximum, like, even here, I mean, will be, there might have to be a little bit of tweaking there. I don't have the exact number, but they can go for that without, but again, they will be facing it the next year, no matter what.
And again, levy limit is a number without distinction to the taxpayers. Whether or not you're above the levy limit or below the levy limit, if we
Doesn't matter.
increase taxes, we increase taxes, and they don't care if it's a debt exclusion, they don't care if it's override. All of that conversation, I think, is after a budget passes, we figure out how to fund it, because again, we're trying to come up with a number that can be affordable to the people who live here.
And it's just not the seniors, it's everybody in town.
Mhm.
You know, I think there's a
Sure.
very few number of people who can look at it and go, 10%, got that, without going.
I mean, looking at, obviously, we've gone from the 4 to 5% range. I mean, it was 4% 2 years ago. In the present fiscal year we're in, it was, well, at the time before the adjustments, because of how the things are getting out of whack between residential and commercial evaluations. At the time of town meeting, had a calculation about being 4.25%. It actually was higher than that. So, I mean, one of the, people's opinions, I mean, would you be looking at a number that's similar to that in the past year of 4%, which was still higher, or where are your opinions on that? I can open that up to the select board and other members of the finance committee.
I mean, my personal goal, and we'll see what happens when we do votes, is that the town share of the budget be flat. That we find a way, and I think it will require us to cut some things that are popular to do in town. But that we do that to make that flat. And that we try to see if we can get the schools to about 4%, so that the total budget as a whole, or 5%. So the total budget as a whole only goes up by 2.5%. But as you pointed out, that even if the budget only goes up by 2.5%, taxes will likely go up by more, because the value of commercial property is still going down. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I think we really have to figure out a way. I also think we could, well, I have funding ideas, but I want to focus on the budget numbers, and then we can figure out if there's creative ways to limit how much that impacts the taxpayers.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I mean, when you take 2.5%, that's just a 2.5% increase in the levy, which does leave more than 2.5% for the total budget with the, when you have the new growth number in there.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Peg, can I answer the question that you had asked earlier?
Ish. Ish,
ish.
be like ish.
I like ish. So our budget last year was $17,001,772. So for all intents and purposes, let's say we had a $17 million budget. Of that budget, last year, we had just $694,928 was Assabet, so just under 700,000. And our assessment from Berlin-Boylston was $8,442,195. So if you add those together, and I didn't do the percentage, but the schools represent a little more than half of that budget. I think when you look at the increase percentages for both schools, they're disproportionate, right? Because if they represent 50% of the budget, but they're representing, far more of a percentage of our new funds, which I'm estimating right now at $577,913. That's if you do $200,000 in new growth and you do 2.5, which obviously we can do more of. But if you start, say, at 577,913, and you take out the 163,965 for Assabet, the town requests were just under 350,000. I've got them down to just over 275,000 right now. So I have managed to cut out just about $70,000. I can tell you it would be quite devastating to cut out another 275,000. We're talking about taking out whole departments, which I know you understand. But I think, so say you take out 275, you take out 163, that would leave you with 137, which is not a proportionate amount to give to Berlin Boylston. That's less than they deserve. So, you know, if you're splitting the funds really in half, you're talking about a little over 250, I hate doing math like this, 285, is that right, for each? You know, to split. And so we're not too far off on the town side, but you know, the schools, to give them just a number and say, okay, you get half of new growth, wouldn't get us anywhere close to even just the operating budget increase that they're looking for. So I don't know that that would be beneficial to give them a number. But I thought about that last year too, because that's what, as you said, Boylston did. So, and you know, now they're really down low on their levy. I think they have 297,000 left on their levy, somewhere in the twos, right around there when we looked them up.
Well, one thing is what, I mean, anybody from wants to put in their own opinions on a general idea of target numbers or something you just want to wait for our other meetings? We're going to be meeting every Wednesday for the rest of the month, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want you to have the
It's okay.
opportunity if you
Get
want to
rid of
speak
that.
up on it.
Do you have something you want to say?
Nope, not it.
That's okay. I mean, if you,
Yeah.
I mean, because obviously we have to deliberate, we will be, you know, working to get, we obviously had to get a recommended budget from the finance committee. So we will be working towards that, and I'm sure it's gonna have, my guess is it's gonna have most everybody unhappy.
Oh,
Yeah. Now can I say something?
Chris, I think was looking too, sorry.
Well, I hope not. I hope we're not going to be unhappy like we were last year and the year before and the year before that. You know, let's try something new. Let's try, I mean, we generally have been sending letters to the schools saying, you know, we'd like you to stay at 2 or 2.5%. They never do. But if they came in at 4 or 5, you know, I'd be happy.
You got Mr. Cliff.
Oh, I don't have pearls of wisdom, but I certainly hope that the school department monitors this meeting,
Well, we do have a representative in the back of the room, so thank you very much for showing. We appreciate you.
because I think it's clear that the town has a significant issue and problem to solve, and it can't be solved with no due disrespect meant to the select board. It can't be solved by the select board by itself. It can't be solved by the finance committee by itself. It can't be solved by any one aspect of town government. And so it should be clear to the leaders of BBRSD that there's a problem. And to whatever degree they can help solve that problem, they need to do that very fast. I believe they're voting March
11th.
11th.
Yep.
So they don't have a lot of days left, but they need to look really hard. And when I heard interim superintendent at our finance committee meeting, when Kristen did a presentation on where the budget stood at the time after they did the district presentation, and he said, we need to sharpen our pencils. I mean, it was clear to him. But I think this meeting would make it even clearer to them that they need to be part of the solution. And we welcome that participation, in my view. That's not very wise, but that's what I gotta say.
It's wise, but it's clear, Cliff. I mean, yeah, we can't do it. And unfortunately, we need the school committee to stand up and say, we can't, because there will come a point where Berlin will have no more money to give. Well, we don't have money to give now, but we will have even less than no money to give. And the flag cannot be raised again about, well, we need to do what is best for the children, and we need to do what is best to compete with public schools and, or with private schools. in vocational schools. That should not even be part of the decision, because kids will go to private school if they want, and kids will go to vocational schools. No, that's, to me, that's not a valid. We need money to do this, so. I don't know, and it doesn't leave us a lot of time, because if they meet on the 11th, then the 17th is our next meeting. The 19th is your next meeting. And then when do we need to giddy up and get this stuff in the mail?
My goal is to get it to the printer by April 2nd so that we can get it out 5 to 7 days thereafter.
So that means
Oh.
they're meeting on the 11th, we're meeting on the 17th, you're meeting on the 19th. That means we have 1 week and 1 day of the following week, because here comes April.
And if we want to, I say, I don't think they had a budget by March 11th last year. I think they're at least getting
It's
a
early.
number at least earlier than they did last year, which does allow at least a week and a day. Because I
Yes.
think last year we had minus a week and a
Yeah,
day
we did.
to actually come to this.
It's 2 weeks
Um,
earlier, which is
Right.
great.
And that 2 weeks will, I think, allow for some stuff. I would also like to suggest, if I don't remember the number, in the regional school district agreement, it says the town's responsible for repairs over a certain dollar amount.
Yes.
And what I might think as a potential way forward is that we look at that agreement, that anything that needs to be done, like roofs, is done by the town of Berlin, and is a warrant article unto itself and not money we give to school districts. And so I think what that does, it takes that number out of these massive numbers, and that's the largest number in it. The largest increase is at least Berlin Memorial capital stuff. It also alleviates some of my concern, is that the school made it very clear last year that we have no say over what happens once we give them a dollar, and they can move anything from one line item to another, and allows me to feel good about potentially doing a couple $100,000 roof if I know that's not going to go to something else. And so it allows us to maintain the building. It allows a little bit of control. It takes a big number out of their things, so the increases don't look artificially inflated. I worry it's late in this year's process to do something like that. But it's at least a potential way.
May I say something?
Oh, Chris is raising her hand.
Oh, Chris.
Are they asking for a new roof?
Yes.
Okay.
New roof and solar.
Yeah, they
May-
did point out their number one priority is apparently the elevator.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I was
Needs to
just
be,
gonna say
that needs to be, they said without question, their number one, that has to be addressed.
Well, then roof maybe next year.
Do you have their capital plan yet, their 10-year plan?
They haven't given the 10-year plan, but in your pack, in the PDF I printed for tonight, it has their capital requests in it.
Right, but we don't know.
Where is
They
that?
haven't split it out yet.
Alright.
It's the last page of the budget.
I want to echo what Scott said, though. The superintendent was very clear that if the only capital project they can fund is the elevator, then that's what they need to do. Because they have problems with licensing or its certification or whatever it is. They need to get it done.
Well, it's in violation of
ADA.
American with
Yeah,
Disability Act
so
if they
it's-
can't provide
yeah.
that.
I would also keep in mind that I like your points, Scott, very much, and they make logical sense. They have a lot more staff on the school side to manage these projects, though. They have a finance director, a facilities director, things that we do not have, or full-time facilities director, things that we do not have here. So it would have to be with the understanding that that project would probably move along slower.
Or that they assist with it. I mean, I
Sure.
couldn't imagine that we would do capital improvements in the building without seriously close coordination with them, both on timing and budget numbers, and does it still make sense? I mean, we even do our own capital plans that we pass things at town meeting, that 3 months after town meeting, that project doesn't make a sense anymore. And that we've asked the warrant article to be dissolved later on. And so I imagine some of those same things that happen to the town would still continue to happen to them.
Right, on some of their larger capital request, we do need the multiple bids, even though I know bids don't last forever, but you need approximate costs, kind of like the handler last year. 400,000 was just a number that got thrown and stuck against the wall, but there was nothing to confirm 400,000. So when they say classroom mini splits of almost 300,000, replace the roof of 323, add solar to the roof, 360. I want to see waved in front of me like we did to take the buildings down. Here's a quote. Oh, look, here's another one. And oh, look, here's another one. I don't want it coming back with just one or the excuse of, well, I can't give them to you because they expire in 60 days. Then to me, these are nothing but numbers thrown on the wall with no justification.
Yeah, although at this point in the process, you don't need 3 bids at this point. You just need a ballpark from someone who
Correct.
understands the stuff, so you know that it's really a $400,000 project or 200, because you're not getting a statement of work that dots and Ts and other stuff. You need a bid package at this point. It's, but yes, you could have something that at least justifies this and
Yeah.
explain how you justify it, you
Right.
know? Like-
$206,000 for furniture.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, but that's what I'm looking at, and
no,
I'm taking off Peg's select board hat and putting on Peg resident hat. That if I see this and I'm looking at it, because all this information is available under the town administrator on our website, correct?
This
Yeah.
most recent one I
Yeah.
wanted to share with you,
Yep.
you boards before I put it on the website. It will be up there tomorrow.
But if I'm a resident, I wanna know why somebody's spending over $200,000 on furniture.
well, again, it's still proposing.
Still proposing, I understand that, but where are they getting it from?
Well, and that is something they did talk about. I guess the furniture was elementary school sized at the middle school and the kids don't fit into the desks. So there was explanation given.
And so I think both us and encouraging anybody watching, go to the meeting on March 11th, because I also think that even we've had several years worth of contentious budgets related to the schools, but the number of parents and residents showing up at school board meetings to ask questions directly is tiny. And as it has been said by other people on social media, that waiting till May 4th at 8 o'clock in the evening to have your conversation about it is very late in the process. You can have a lot more impact now, and it's not just even going to the meetings, that the members of the school board are, just like the select board, are residents of the town. They're paying the same taxes we are. It's not like they're exempt from these increases. I'm sure they feel it as well, but ask them, talk to them about their opinions, talk to Peg, Chris and I about our opinions, I still find it fascinating, the number of people who over the years have come up to me and complain about how taxes are high, and then in the same breath, ask for a new government service that's going to spend more money. And those things are related to each other. And so whether it's the schools, the town, start thinking about where do you think some of this stuff needs to come from? Because I said before, and I'll say again, I think everyone in at least the town level, which I know better, works hard to stretch the money they can. I think every employee is working well. I can't speak for the schools. I don't know it well, but I've never seen anything that makes me think the schools aren't trying their best to stretch the pennies the best they can, and that their employees don't work hard. I don't think I've ever heard in my life, a story of a teacher that wasn't taking money out of their own pocket to make sure that things go well in the schools, and they're not paid great. And so, we got to find a way to make it work. And so, show up and let your voices be heard.
So then we wait for you guys to come back with recommendations on, this is
Yes,
$10, but we recommended $7.
correct.
And then we vote on their recommendation?
Usually you vote first.
We vote first?
Yep.
Okay. And when are you gonna vote, ish? Not this Wednesday, but.
We can actually, we usually start knocking off piece by piece. We usually start with the low hanging fruit
The ones that
early
you can't
on.
change, yeah.
Right, or correct, exactly. You got the Worcester County retirement. You don't have choices in there, so we do knock off those quickly. And likewise, certain budgets are so minuscule that if you cut the whole thing, they don't even show up in the percentages.
I just have question, comment, recommendation, wherever you want to categorize it. With this great new tab on the town's website where information is available, it's hard for us to extract numbers out of there to get figures that make sense to us. So I'm guessing that the average resident opens these spreadsheets and they just go cross-eyed.
And they close it.
Is there a way to almost make a summary, maybe even like a fiscal year, 3 years worth of fiscal year summary, like this is where we've been and this is where we're going? I think it really needs to be pointed out to people like how dire the financial situation is. And if we keep going at, show them the rate that we're going at.
What would you want in that summary, just to make sure I'm understanding? Like, were you looking at like revenues, expenditures, requests, or?
More kind of like the taxpayer impact.
Okay,
So
Which is
last year, our
hard
budget
to-
Was
Mm.
X,
And
the increase
the
was.
increase was
X.
this percent in your tax payment this year, but do it over, don't just do it last year and this year. Have a couple years in there so they can see it tracking upward and at what percentage it's been tracking upward.
so going past is fairly easy because we have all of that data that gets calculated out on the state's website. So we can definitely maybe do snapshots from there. Going forward is challenging because I
So then put this year, whatever the amount is,
Yep.
parenthesis, estimated to be reviewed, tax increase, don't know yet, obviously much nicer words. I mean,
Yeah.
and then as we get money, then that line gets populated. I mean, that's a fair point that Heidi has, is that if I look back 5 years ago and the budget was 10 million, and all of a sudden you go forward 5 years and it's now 17 million, that's gonna make a lot of people go and not say nice words that I almost said on camera.
Because if you look at a bulk of the families that are specifically at Berlin Memorial, they're younger families that maybe have only been in town
Correct.
maybe 3 years. So they've been here through kind of this whole series of budget crises. But maybe aren't seeing, beforehand, and especially where we've brought up our senior population. I mean, we really need to start thinking of Berlin as a community as a whole and how it impacts everybody that's here.
I saw somebody was doing something like that today, and I forget which town it was, but they did little like bar graphs.
Yes.
So I can try to work on something that
Okay.
simplifies it, maybe just takes the data and puts it into some type of graphs that might be
Yeah.
easier for people
Yeah.
to.
Excel, that's nice. I mean, you
Yeah.
can just put the number in there and
Okay.
then pick a pie chart, pick a histogram or whatever. But I mean, that would definitely show.
Simple visual is important.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple to show like the levy part, what the increase is.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure how you would reflect one of the other pieces that's also coming in there. I mean, the pure dollar amount and the increase in the levy is bad enough as it is when you see it. But the other thing that has hit so much is the fact that the residential property valuation is so out of whack with reality versus other like retail. Basically the market's frozen up, and as a result is the valuations are truly not realistic. I mean, they are realistic in the sense if you're going to sell your home right now, but they're not realistic over time. But unfortunately, the way taxes are, how much of the tax you pay is based on what, percentage your valuation represents on the overall valuation of the town. And because we have the split tax rate, and because we've had for example, Solomon Pond, who's since in 2012 was valued at 200 million. Earlier this year, earlier last year, it was reassessed to less than 30 million. And I mean, that's a reflection also across other retail property. So that all has shifted the actual burden to the residential. So even when you look at the dollar amounts of the levy increase, the residents have been getting hit extra hard because those taxes aren't being paid by the retail that they were previously or the other commercial properties. And that, I don't know how you can try to put that up there because it's bad enough just looking at the pure numbers, but those numbers don't tell the whole story of how much the burden has shifted to the residential.
Right. That's tricky. Let me think on it. And I'm wondering if I show like little pieces, it'll
Right.
kind of create the whole picture.
And to be clear, it's the commercial's not subsidized the residential as much. The commercial
Correct.
used to still pay significantly more on a per $1,000 value basis, or $100,000 value than residential does. It's not able to subsidize us as much. And so I want people not looking that like commercial is not necessarily paying. It's not paying, it's not subsidizing as much as it used to.
Yeah, they were weighted more, but at the same time that it's been, because they were weighted more, that is also unfortunately
Right.
with this crazy situation we have, as a result, has made the swing worse.
Peg, Chris has her hand up.
Oh, all right, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I like Heidi's idea. And in order for that to work, I think you're going to have to take a very high level look and try to describe it from a high level. You can't put all those details in, otherwise, like they'll just shut the book and say, or, shut the computer and say, forget it. I don't want to bother with this. But if you did something high level for like the last 3 or 4 years, I think that would explain, why basically their taxes have gone up.
If you put something together, Kristen, can we use that and talk about it in our board meeting with FinCom too, so that average resident isn't just looking at it and going, what is this? And then we can always say in parentheses, see select board and FinCom meetings on blah, blah, blah for explanations, because when you talk levy capacity, people are like, what? Kind of like
Yeah.
free cash. It's not free and it's not cash, so you need a smaller, simpler Reader's Digest version of what that is. We may know the terms, some people in town may know the terms, but you have to go for a lower denominator of what does that mean? Oh, we take all the excess levy capacity. Oh, that's great. There's $1 million sitting somewhere. Okay. No. Yeah, that $1 million is sitting in your pocket.
Yeah.
Walk it out.
Well, and that's what I was attempting to verbally do with the TA report summary, but graphically it would be easier for people to understand, I think.
It's a this is going to be a work in progress, and I think that's how you have to present that on the page too. These numbers will change over,
Yeah.
within the next few weeks as FinCom meets, as the board meets, as the school committee comes back with their numbers, they are going to change. We are doing our best. We are directing the narrative. It is not other people that I've seen on social media. They're like, oh, the school's increase is only 4%. And I'm thinking, oh, where'd you get that number from? Even Peg Math can't get you to 4%, so I want us to control the numbers, not a resident who means well, but does not have a full grasp of it. So, all right. So then your next steps are what? Your meeting Wednesday, talk about whoever is left on the budget, and then you're gonna start.
Yeah, I mean, correct. We're reading the last groups to go through their budgets, and then we'll start the process of recommending line by line.
So then we're not meeting next Monday, but we're meeting the 10th. So is that when we look at what you've, and then we start to vote, or we
We
start
tend
to
to
make
vote. We
recommendations?
do first,
All right.
because at the end of the day, it is actually FinCom's recommended budget that goes to the town.
Right.
Okay,
So your next meeting is March 10th.
that is correct.
Okay.
Which will fall on the heels of school committee's meeting
On the
on the
11th.
11th.
Right, okay.
All right. Well, you want to start taking a stab at them tonight, or do you want to wait until the 10th because it's getting late in the night? And we have other things to do.
My idea was to start with some of them tonight, but I know now it's getting late, so yeah.
Are there easy ones? Kind of like, what Scott was saying, low hanging fruit, we don't have a choice.
I think so, but I may hit some that's not the case. I mean, if you look at your intergovernmentals.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on health insurance, so we can't do that one yet, but some of the other ones like Worcester Regional, you could do. Workers' comp, unemployment, you could certainly hit some of the ones, in the 900s. I usually like to start at the top, but we could start there. I mean, Worcester Regional is fixed at 819,280. Workers' comp, that's really where I'm comfortable being at for the IOD and the workers' comp is keeping it level. We have a 0% increase, and we came in, we're coming in at just under that for this fiscal year. Unemployment insurance, I did have a long conversation so I could reduce it. I don't know, sorry if you want me to do this. I just jumped
I
right
was
into
gonna say,
it.
do you want to put it up? Wherever you are, do you want to put it up on the screen? So I know people here can't really see it, but people at home will be able to. So when we say line 100, line 683, they know, oh, that's what they're talking about.
Yep. All right, and I tried to renumber them too, so that hopefully you can refer to lines on the left-hand side as well. Give me 1 second to share. Go backwards this year, why not? Let's do it a little different. So if you start with what I was referring to, just so folks online can see, I was referring to starting in the 900s, which are miscellaneous benefits and insurance. That will be lines 98 through 104, with the exception of line 101, because I would not be comfortable voting that number at this time. We have our meeting coming up next week, or the beginning of the week after, with our health insurance person. But I did have a long conversation on unemployment and looked at our claims for the past years. They recommended that we reduce to 20,000 based on most of our years, our claims being well under $10,000. Sick pay just goes up by 2%, and that's a fixed cost based on what's available. It's mostly in the police contract and a couple of grandfathered employees who have been here for a long time. Medicare, the 4% is the recommended increase, and property casualty is level funded because we were able to get a 0% increase for workers' comp and property casualty for FY26.
Actually, I was wondering if the finance committee could
Oh,
adjourn.
before we go?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
Just think that you're.
we like you hanging out.
all right,
They have to-
motion to adjourn. Wait a
Second.
second. All those in favor? Aye.
Before they go, do we need Heidi for anything for her item?
I should probably be here while you vote.
Oh, yes.
So could
In
we
case
like
there's any
pause you and
questions.
then do
Sure.
Heidi? All right, so
Do you need me to change seats or am I okay?
You can hang out there.
switch your hat, Heidi. All right, so we skipped around while Heidi's here because we don't want her to stay too late. Under new business is consideration of a letter of request to allow a section 20 exemption submitted by Heidi Petard. So, Kristen, if you want to give a little bit of skinny on what that is and.
Sure, absolutely. So, I know that Heidi has
you Wednesday.
received guidance from the state attorney of the day on how to handle this. She has accepted a position as, I believe, a paraprofessional at Assabet.
Mhm.
And as a result, and wanting to stay on the FinCom, that requires an section 20 exemption from the select board. It's just a vote because we are under 3,500 in population. It does not require a full disclosure to be filed with the town clerk.
I did a quick look at the town bylaw because I know there's restrictions on who can be on FinCom and potential conflicts with other town committees. And it actually, the way it is worded, that she is more than welcome to do both. You can't sit on other town committees. That is a paid position, not a town committee. And therefore, I thought it was fine and would make the motion to approve it.
And we've done this before with
A library
the-
employee.
Yes, thank you. Okay. All right. Chris, any questions for Heidi while she's here?
No,
All right, so there's a motion. Do you want to make a second?
second,
All right, roll call vote.
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, Heidi.
Boom chakalaka.
Thank you.
Go home. We'll see you on
Do I
Wednesday.
have to?
Yes, you do. And congratulations.
Well, you can hang out in the audience if you'd like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, feel free, we're
I might sit back there for a few.
Okay. All right,
go
so
back now.
Flipping back, thank you, for doing that for the quick shift. All right, Kristen, so back we are,
So you're
budget up on the board.
right. And so 104, we've been talking about taking down several buildings. That's not incorporated into this number. Correct?
It is not. I level funded it because
Well, we have a level funded contract.
I do, and the only problem with that is the building values sometimes
Yep.
go down year to year. So yes, I guess that's possible that could go down a couple thousand.
Right. I was gonna say, I just noting that's not in it, so that I'm thinking more that when we do this next year, there might be some savings in it. I don't think I'm in
Correct.
favor of lowering it any lower than it is right now. Because we also don't know the date of those. I mean,
Correct.
if there was a construction crane out there right now tearing them down, I could guarantee they'd be done before the renewal. Sure, but no. And then we're skipping 101, correct?
Yes, please skip 101.
I want to note that 101 typically hands back over $100,000 every year in free, for being underspent. And so I want to look at that one much tighter
Yes.
this coming year, because I think there's some savings in that line.
Yeah, the challenge with that is we typically budget 2 extra single and 2 extra family in
Yep.
case, but we could always do a reserve fund.
I would remove those and do a reserve fund transfer. I think the purpose of the reserve fund is we should budget for what we think is going to happen. If something changes from that, that's what the reserve fund is for.
The health insurance is tough only because it's very fluid because we do have people
Yep.
come on and off during the year.
Yep.
Do you want to bump it up? Kristen?
It's the,
Oh,
Sure.
did I not share it again? I'm sorry. I forgot I took it down, so you didn't have to stare at that while Heidi was talking.
and then Worcester Regional Retirement is based on some actuarial numbers on the number of employees. And so if we ended up with fewer town employees, that number in the future could go down or not go up as fast, because unlike everything else, that goes up 10 to 15% a year, no matter what we seem to do.
They made some, they had some investment issues that has caused it to go up substantially for everybody.
I've been doing this for 15 years and it has gone up substantially because we just had a problem and we're going to pay it back and in 5 years we'll be caught up. It never, under any circumstance, will ever happen.
I tend to,
But there's actually, I'm hoping at some point that it doesn't go up as much as it is, and there might be things we can try to do about it. But as a whole, I'm personally fine with your recommended numbers for 98, 99, 100, 102, 103, and 104, which is under the sort of miscellaneous benefits and insurance, all but health insurance.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, well, we've had lots of discussions. Any other further questions? Nope. All right, roll call vote.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, I.
Stone eye.
all right, give me just 1 second because now I'm filling it in on my spreadsheet as well here.
Um,
Or
I-
Colleen.
There we go.
While you're doing that, I might suggest that 93, 94, and 97 under intergovernmental we take care of, because 94 and 97 are being zeroed out. And 93 is a bill we get from the Central Regional Planning Commission, which for that $1,000, the amount of benefit we get from a town, their coordination, is just, it is easy money spent, but it also, although it goes up exactly 2.5%, which is my favorite number, but it's also going from it's going up $25 total.
Agreed.
Which numbers, Scott?
I'm looking at intergovernmental section 800, 93, 94, and 97.
97 doesn't have a number, does it?
Right, 97 and 94 are both being zeroed out.
Oh, okay.
Low hanging fruit.
They're showing somewhere else in the budget, and there's stories why they're being read, because both of those
Oh,
things
all
don't
right.
exist, but
Gotcha.
Right, so the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium is now being handled by the Housing Trust in terms of payment. And the animal control has to come back out of intergovernmental and go back into the police department budget where it's been being paid out of, because that IMA fell through with the other towns.
So
so
did you make that motion, Scott?
yeah, I'll make the motion 93, 94, and 97 as recommended.
Second,
All right, no further discussion, roll call vote.
Hawkins, aye.
Keith, I.
Stone eye.
Sorry, I might be going faster than you're willing to go.
No, not at all.
I
You
think,
good?
I think 700
Good.
will be fine to do because it's principal and interest on, that's the, highway barn loan.
Correct.
And as I pointed out earlier in the meeting, if you notice that the principal stays the same, we pay $190,000 a year. And because it's a loan, the principal starts the year lower, and so interest goes down a little bit. We're paying $5,700 less. And so I would move the totality of line 700, or sorry, section 700, which is lines 91 and 92, into interest and principal as recommended.
Second,
Hearing no other need for discussion, roll call,
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone eye.
Scott, I
that
like
might
you
be-
driving this bus.
I was gonna say, I think we might declare victory that we've gone through 3 sections and stop it at that point for tonight.
All right.
Because I think
Yes.
we start getting into discussions as we get into other things.
Okay,
All right, next up on the,
I'm a numbers and spreadsheet sort of person, and so.
No,
like,
it was
I-
great. It was
just get
faster
into
than I
these
could
things.
do.
so Kristen, was there anything left over on your TA report?
Yes,
Okay.
let me jump back to that. I just didn't want the budget information to be stale by the time we got there, because that is most of what I've been working on. In addition, just reminding everybody, finance meeting 7:30 on Wednesdays. Capital planning will meet again this Thursday at 7. And the public safety project continues with Assabet. Carpentry and electrical work are continuing. It looks fantastic. As I said at the finance committee meeting on last Wednesday, there's a vibrancy in the building, having the students in here and just an energy that it's a really exciting project and it's mutually beneficial. So definitely happy to have that opportunity to undertake it. We also held the February department head meeting, and procurement was the big topic of conversation. I have instituted a new administrative policy, which any departments need a pre-authorization for any purchase of $3,000 or more, because we are finding that cumulatively we are going over $10,000 for, or getting very close to going over $10,000, I should say, for certain businesses, and that puts us at the need to do procurement. So this gives me 3 opportunities at least to check and see where we're at. So I have put that policy in place. I'm working up a formal form, but right now department heads just need to email me and let me know. And I sign off on moving forward because, like I said, we're running into a number of issues. So also, as was mentioned in a previous select board meeting, I asked the department heads to start taking a look at fines and fees to make sure that the charges are up to date and accurately capture the cost to do that work, and that they are, in line with what other communities around here are doing. We also realized recently that our vehicle titles are all over town. So we are consolidating them in the select board office in a locked box with copies to be given to departments. And that way we can also open the box and go through our spreadsheet every year, make sure our fleet information is accurate and our insurance information is accurate. And then we went over workers' comp and property liability claims and how to submit them, and that things should be submitted even if you don't think it meets the deductible, or you don't think somebody is that injured. I mean, not for a paper cut, but if someone falls down, obviously it should be reported. It does not cost us anything to report an incident that does not turn into a claim. I also had a great meeting with Tim Wheeler to discuss a variety of planning board and community preservation matters, including their warrant articles and a proposed letter of understanding that is being drafted between Berlin and Marlboro regarding the redevelopment of the Solomon Pond Mall and coordinating zoning, which Tim believes the planning board would like that letter to jointly come from the select board and the planning board to the city of Marlboro. And Meredith Harris, who is their economic development coordinator, was quite happy. She thought being able to hand that to potential developers could be very beneficial to show coordination and that we're basically on the same page, even though we haven't updated our zoning yet. So that is to come. We talked about giving the flagpole and the clock to First Parish Church, and Tim has some connections over there, so he was going to help out with that. And then the potential new development that we talked about over by Hogsbrook, with the railroad crossing that is required. Still waiting on information from the attorney, but they did send me the title, which does show that the town has an easement. So in order for them to cross over the rail trail, it is abandoned railroad, but therefore the rail trail, they do need permission from the town. One of the suggestions that has been made, because I've been discussing this with a number of groups in town, is to wait until DCR issues their authorization to pass over the rail trail. They are the owners, the lessee of that land. It's owned by MBTA. So there's a couple of other steps in the process, and we're working with council to make sure that everything is done properly with regard to that. Also, our current contract with OpenGov that does our permitting software expires next year. So I actually had a call with Permit Link regarding some potential future software through them that would include fire, and they also do dog licenses and permits and licenses to the select board office, and their costs are substantially cheaper. So we'll be looking into that, and they are able to do a data migration over from OpenGov if that's the direction we decide to go in. They've had a number of cities and towns that have done this. And then I worked on the budget website.
But just recognize that no data migration is perfect.
Fair enough.
Someone has done dozens of them, right? And I've had many vendors who've done it hundreds of times, and there's always some little wrinkle. You do lose something when you do, but you should still
Sure.
potentially, if it makes sense, do it. Just know that there'd be some loss.
Some glitches. That's it.
All righty, thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Skippy doo darn down to old business to discuss and vote on the 2025 annual town meeting warrant. So it closes today.
Did you want to see if anyone had questions? on
Oh,
my
sorry, I
TA
didn't interrupt.
report?
Does anyone have any questions?
About-
I don't.
About what?
TA report.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna ask, I've never heard anything about Hogs Brook. I don't know what that's all about. Is that just
So-
a trail or?
Yeah, so there is a potential developer down there that needs a crossing over the rail trail in order to put in and this is in very conceptual plan stages right now. They have not even approached the planning board at this time. They would need to get that rail crossing in order to put it forth, but what has been sent out is potentially 11 duplexes, so 22 units, 2 of which would be on the other side of the rail trail, along with their water, public water supply on that side as well. So the real issue right now is trying to figure out if and how we, facilitate that type of crossing, because they need it from multiple agencies, the town included.
Okay, is
We're
Hogs,
kind of in an information gathering phase.
okay, I just hadn't heard a thing about it. And Hogs Brook, where is this location that you're speaking of? Is it not
Like,
out?
Yeah.
down 62 by 495.
Right.
So where
Oh.
the marshy areas where you park, or where people park to help commute,
Oh,
that's kind of the Hawk Brook area.
Yep.
okay. I thought we were maybe talking about Allen Road or something.
No,
No.
no, and we had talked about, you brought this up last week too, I
I
think.
thought I did at the last meeting.
All right. Any other questions on Kristen's report?
I just had a quick question on or a comment, I should say, on the appointed positions that we discussed or you all discussed in the minutes.
That's the next agenda item. That's not the TA report.
No, I was actually had written down a question. Go
Okay.
ahead, Ed. If you're
The,
gonna,
the town meeting warrant articles is the next agenda item, which I think you're moving on to, as opposed to questions to Kristen about her TA report.
no, it wasn't really about her TA report, but I wasn't thinking about that. next agenda item. Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so now we'll skippy-doo down to the annual town meeting warrant, which closed today, correct? So then what we have is what we got for May, correct?
Correct.
All right.
So, I'll give you a brief overview of things that are potentially exciting. I'll skip the standard ones. I'll skip stabilization funding because we all know about those. The one thing that a couple of these may or may not happen. I know the assessors were still talking about, whether or not they wanted to support the HERO Act local options, which are new benefits for veterans. It increases the property tax abatement for veterans annually based on cost of living increases, and it doubles the exemption for veterans who qualify for local property tax exemption. So I know that is being discussed still, but I wanted to put a placeholder on for that. There are also two new Mass General laws that we may be able to adopt rather. One is a 5% motor vehicle excise surcharge, which I'll get some more information on. And there's supposed to be a new local option for hotels and meal tax percentages that I'll get you some more info on as well. And then we have, I believe Chris had the question on elected to appointed positions, town clerk, constables, and trustee of trusts.
My only comment on that from reading the minutes, because it's already on the warrant, was that I would really like to see someone have a discussion with these particular people who are in the elected position, just to be respectful to them, rather than having them show up at town meeting and realize that, you know, things are going to change for them. Has this been done?
No, it hasn't been done, but the point is to be able to move forward and have those discussions, you have to basically have the town approve that we can start doing that before you start having that discussion. I can't see any of this come May at our town meeting that we're just gonna poof and make this happen. There was an email, Dee, I think you sent it or Kristen sent it about the whole process.
Yep.
Regarding that, so it's a fairly detailed process. It's just not.
It is, although I think it would be fine to at least, if the three of us are in agreement, to direct Kristen to send an email out to the people who have these current positions to get their
Give them a
feedback.
heads
and
up
make
that
an
you're
appointment.
talking about it, you know?
So I did to the town clerk already because I needed to ask about putting that article
Yep.
on the election. But I will certainly do so to the constables and trustees of trust as well.
And that process, which is both a vote at town meeting and a vote by the electorate, says that anyone who has one of those positions at the moment that passes continues in that position until their term would normally be up. And obviously, we could extend it beyond that, but
Right.
that there is no change that happens immediately. And the belief was, even when I put it forward, is that it could take longer. Because even with that stuff, I'm wondering whether that just makes a better fall town meeting, but that right now you have to have the maximum list right now, and so we still have time to cross it off if we decide that either the meeting's too long or it's better in the fall than any other sort of feedback.
Correct. So this is still just a list. I
Yep.
haven't turned anything into written
Yep.
articles at this point, although I will say that several of the departments did submit the language, the full language, which is fantastic. So we can pull from there.
Well, it's just respectful to give them a heads up that you're talking about it. That's all I was, you know, suggesting. You need to at least let them know that, you know, the board's talking about this. It may be on the town meeting warrant, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Kristen, I see that you sent this out to all of us and Eloise on February 12th.
Right, so just make sure those other constables and trustees of trust that you get something out to.
Well,
do
a
that.
conversation wouldn't hurt either, you know. If you've had one, great. And the other thing I wanted to just have a chance to talk about was the 5-member board. Whenever you get to it.
I can move to that if you'd like.
Well, why don't you just keep going in the order there on the page?
Okay. So we did put that, we had talked about ticket books at one point. That would be about a $3,000 special article. I just had that on there just as a placeholder. We received a request from the library to repurpose Article 21 of the May 2006 annual town meeting, of which they have $14,775 left. To include, it is for capital improvements at the library. They would like that to include a space use analysis and interior improvements as eligible uses, because they now see that being the direction that they're moving in at the library.
I hate articles that last many years because it's not used at all in the intent it was in 2006, but since we haven't closed it out, I thought we were being very aggressive about turning out articles that people aren't using.
We are.
Since we haven't done that yet, might as well.
People do have to justify why they want things open every year. And that one, because the discussion about library expansion has still been on the table, has been kept open.
I would disagree.
There's also,
It's been a long time. Probably needs new discussion, but whatever.
take it off if you want.
No,
No, leave it.
because I think having it on allows that sort of discussion, so I'm fine with it.
Okay, it's coming from the library
Yep,
trustees.
yep.
Also, we might need the possible article to fund the DEP required studies for the former landfill, as the Board of Health Chair has come forward and stated. I know he's still researching that, and they need the initial study before they know what the larger costs will be. I also really would like to do a class and comp plan update. It's going to be 6 years old now, and it is pre-COVID. So it is really old. I think that I can probably swing it for closer to 10,000, but with cost escalating, I just put in 15K as a placeholder number. And then I think my next bullet went away. I apologize.
Could you just explain what class and comp
Oh,
is, since
yeah.
that's not,
Sure, sorry. Class and comp plan does the classification and compensation for non-union employee positions. So it sets them on a grade of 1 to, I forget what the top one is. I think it's 8 or 9. And then it lays out steps within it of where you can start employees at and where they would move to with step increases. So it would go and look at other cities and towns that are deemed comparable and make sure that our pay scales are in line, and our classification of the positions are in line as well. It looks at job descriptions. It does a whole number of things.
You know, we've only had one ever. And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah, they're supposed to be done every 3 to 5 years.
Right. Is this a good year to do it, since we were talking cutting everything?
I think it's an ideal use to do it, because if we're talking about making sure people are fairly compensated, I think it's an ideal use, because I mean.
I wouldn't have any objection either, you know, but if you're starting to add things and then have to cut them, that was my concern.
Well, but this would come from free cash or
Yeah.
others. This wouldn't be added to the tax burden of the employee of the town.
Right, and it would occur during FY26, so it would be to be implemented in 27, starting in 27. And then the fire EMS had requested $30,000 from capital for unanticipated maintenance and equipment repairs that they have been coming to FinCom for, and they are getting costly, up into the tens of thousands of dollars at some time. So they had actually asked for a $30,000 budget for this. Unfortunately, that really doesn't necessarily meet capital's definition, because it's $10,000 at least in cost and a useful life of 5 years or more. So FinCom felt it would be better to do it as a special article. I'm sorry, Capital felt it would be better to do it as a standalone article, with the understanding that anything that came in at $10,000 would have to go back to the Capital Committee for approval.
Could you give some examples of these?
They've had it's mostly vehicle issues that have broken down. I wish the chief was here. I could give you more specific examples.
Right.
Yeah.
A couple of his reports.
Right, so to me, this is just an expense that's part of their budget.
it's really hard to anticipate, and their budget only provides like $5,000 for maintenance and repair. So
Right, so
this
maybe
would
their
be
budget is not accurate for what it costs to maintenance to repair our vehicles.
agreed. It's just that it's hard to estimate. And if you did it as this article, you would only use what you needed. You would replenish it as needed, and it could be carried over from year to year. So just a
I
thought.
hate all
You
special
hate all
funds.
special
Every
articles.
single fund requires accounting and auditing and tracking.
Mhm.
And so this becomes something else that has to be audited and tracked out. And I know that June says one more doesn't add to her town, but it took her, because of other things, it takes her how long to close every month because it is dozens of pages long, all these funds that we have. And so we have to start reducing this stuff. If we're going to cut the budget at some point, we have to reduce what we're doing. We have to reduce our funds, and having more of them just, they're to live around forever just doesn't seem to make sense to me. I mean, I'm not asking it to be pulled. I'll argue this on the floor and people on the floor can decide if they want it or not, but to me, this is an expense, not a capital item, because again, it's not even going to the capital campaign. And
Right.
it's not a one-time cost, which is the other thing that would go to town meeting. This is something we'd have to do every year.
I have seen articles like this for unanticipated maintenance and repairs. I've seen them for police, fire, and highway. I mean, the other one that would benefit would be a facilities repair fund, but it's definitely something we can, talk further about, and hash out. The next one is money for South Commons master plan, which I don't know where the recreation is at with that.
Recreation did not meet this month, due to illnesses, so their next scheduled meeting is sometime in March.
Okay, they had missed the CPA
Correct.
deadline, so that's how it ended up on this possible list.
Yep.
All right, and there was discussion of, because ambulances are taking 30 months plus to come in, did we need to start the next ambulance purchase? I would have to follow up with the chief on that. And then the only other carryover I had from last year was funding that LED sign in the center of town that was approved through the sign bylaw. I don't think that's an urgent item. It just was a carryover.
Have they come forward and asked about it again? The school?
No, this is the town's
Mm.
sign that we would have, not the school.
That's right. I forgot.
I haven't seen the planning.
Well, and I don't think that's one of the things, I don't think there's a proponent. In some respects, it could be the select board that tries to
Yeah.
do this. That's one I would remove.
Me
Yeah,
too.
Because there's not a proponent, we don't have quotes, there's a lot of other things going on. We could do it at fall town meeting if somebody really wanted the LED. I mean, it's a neat idea to have one, but I don't think there's anyone sort of knocking on our doors saying we need an LED sign at the center.
No, and I still think that there's questions of where it's gonna go, because
Right.
you've got private property, then you've got church property.
Yeah, yep.
So, yeah,
And conservation area over there where the one is sitting now.
Right.
It's not a real
Right.
pretty sign. Was that going to be a prettier
No,
sign?
this would, yes, it would be something like not as bright, but you see there's several in the downtown Hudson.
correct.
It's an LED sign that
Oh.
there's other restrictions, like it wouldn't be
I think it had
lit
to be
from
black
between
and
X and white, and yeah, it might be just black and white. There were restrictions put on it, so it'd be too obnoxious, but I don't think we're ready for it right now, and that's, I think, an easy one to remove.
Yep.
All right, and then under the general bylaws, this really saved very bizarrely when I saved it in Google Docs, but we do need to amend the transfer station revolving fund bylaw to include payroll as an eligible expense. They do need to increase some administrative hours for the transfer station. One of the board members who handled a lot of that is stepping down or not running again, and transferring that work over to the admin, and they are able to fund it out of their revolving. So it doesn't touch the operating budget, which I think is obviously a plus. And then I don't know how established revolving fund spending limits for, and then Earthworks bylaw got mashed together, but we do need to establish our annual revolving fund spending limits. We also have the Earthworks bylaw amendment, which I have a draft of. I was just finishing up putting my recommendations on the budget together, and then I will be working on that. And I did have possibly this was a carryover too, to amend the personnel bylaw. Liz Valerio, our Labor Council, had pointed out at one point there were some inconsistencies between the TA bylaw and the employee handbook, but that doesn't have to do with the personnel bylaw. So I'd have to look into that one and.
Well, and we had also talked at last meeting too, that we know that there's multiple policies that are bazillion years old, that somehow we need to, after we get past town meeting and budget fund,
Yeah,
that we need to start swinging some of these into that big gigantic binder that is used to prop a door open, that we can start going through them and updating them.
well, this one might be a good fall town meeting if we do it, because it would look at any discrepancies between two bylaws, which would be the TA versus the personnel one, because and then there's a policy manual as well. But obviously a bylaw would trump anything that's in a policy manual, so.
Bylaw really is very old.
Yeah,
When we went over it the first time, it's years, decades.
it was at
Right.
least 15 years old
And-
before you got it.
Yeah.
So Chair of Personnel Committee is, Personnel
Member.
Committee member, excuse me,
Member.
is in the audience, and just noted that the personnel, bylaw is quite old,
Thank you.
ancient. And then I did receive 2 zoning bylaw, requests from, planning, an ADU, which is accessory dwelling unit bylaw amendment to align with the new state regulations, and a floodplain bylaw. And they are working also with the FEMA on that floodplain bylaw as well. And then CPA has their budget for FY '26, along with 3 projects. Those projects are $30,000 for parking and access to Horseshoe Pond and the Mount Pisgah Trail Network from the Open Space and Rec Fund, $13,500 for accessioning. Is that how you say it? Accessioning? And is it spelled wrong?
De-accessioning?
De-accessioning of the town's historical clothing and accessories collection from the Historical Preservation Fund, and $10,000 to design the new entrance to the front north side of the 1870 Town Hall, which are the granite steps on the front. And then last but not least, Housing Trust has requested a land transfer article for Legion Hall, and there was the special legislation 5-member select board article.
So,
And Chris, you wanted to talk about the 5-member select board article?
yeah, I wondered, well, so what made you think that that possibly might be a good idea between the two of you? Just a quick synopsis.
I
Because of the
think,
2 of us,
didn't we discuss it last meeting?
several, 2 meetings
So
ago.
2 meetings ago. Anyway, the 3-board select board was created when there was 900 residents in town. And that we now have several thousand more, but the 3 also makes it really difficult if 2 of us happen to see each other in Market Basket to say even hi without grabbing someone else to be a witness, to make sure that we're talking about gardens and vacations and other stuff and not town business. And so I think it allows more flexibility in the town to get to 5. I think it allows more factions in town to be sort of represented on the select board. And it is a direction that a lot of other towns gone. The number of towns with just 3 on their select board is actually quite tiny in the state at this point.
And what
Yeah,
is
I mean,
the
go
population
ahead.
of towns that have gone to 5?
Well, I can share with you an article, it's a little bit old, in 2017. This was from, I forget what town, but he had talked about, there are 298 communities, that have a select board. And at that time, 53% had 3-member boards and 47% had 5-member boards. So think about it, 2017 was what? Oh, God, 8 years ago. Thank you. So I'm sure that that has increased, and as Scott brought up the example, the storage tour that I'm on, as we're trying to figure out what to do with buildings and who needs storage space. Right now, I can only work on it, where if there were a 5-member board, I could ask another board member to work on it with me. So as projects and things come up that are under the purview of the select board, a 5-member board would make it much easier for efficiencies and effectiveness compared to a 3-member board.
It also is just more functional if someone gets called away, you know,
Yep.
if one of us got sick for a period of time and got called away. I go on work trips and other sort of times and sometimes away.
Right.
And I feel bad sometimes that means that sort of the work of the select board gets sort of delayed. If one of us, I mean, that if one of us is gone for any period of time, that makes it so that if the second person can't make it, you can't even hold a meeting.
Correct.
Well, yes, you can.
Um,
I mean, we just usually change the dates, but
No, if two of us were missing,
You
you could
can't
not
have a
hold a
meeting.
select board meeting of one.
right, you'd have to have pick different dates. Anyway,
Right.
so what were the negatives for having 5 or 6 people?
When we discussed it 2 weeks ago, I don't remember us coming up with negatives.
No, the only, again, in this article, he talked about the benefits, which is a better better distribution of select board workload, better select board accessibility for the residents, greater efficiency opportunity for offline discussions, more flexibility opportunity for subcommittees, ease of operation on controversial issues, a broader diversity of views and skill sets.
So, I mean, I think you need more information probably, but I would add that if you think it's hard coming to a decision with 3 people, try having 5 or 6. It's a lot more difficult with more people. And I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing if you meet in Market Basket, because it's not, you know, it's a chance meeting is what they call it.
Right.
And so
I'm in
nothing
favor
wrong
of
with
keeping
the
it on the
chance
agenda
meeting.
for town meeting.
Yeah, because there were 2 towns and
Well-
Lancaster and
Right, but
somebody Sterling that are moving now towards 5-member boards. But keep in mind, again, this is not a flick of the switch that come May, everybody says yes, and then all of a sudden general elections start and people start whizzing in their nomination sheets. You need to talk about how are you going to
I
do
know
that.
it's a long time with all the
Right.
red tape and everything for the state, but I still think, you know, I would never vote for it.
But that's fine. Again, there's someone on this list I'm clearly not going to vote for when they get to the floor of town meeting, but I think really should still be on the agenda. And so I still believe this should be a warrant article at May town meeting.
Eloise has her hand up in the audience.
Hello, Eloise. How
Hold
are
on,
you?
let me bring her up.
Eloise has also been on the regional school committee.
Hi, Eloise.
My question today was mostly for Kristen on capital planning, because I'm on capital planning. Did you consider paying for any of the non-mitigation capital planning things out of stabilization?
I think that would be a FinCom question.
If that would be the recommendation of the capital committee, that could certainly be discussed.
Well, when you were talking about stuff, did you make that in your plan?
I don't have a plan right now for capital. That's a possibility. I would think that you want to generally leave money in stabilization because you just don't know what's going to happen. But something like the roof, we did talk, I believe, last year about taking that out of capital stabilization. So, you know, I think it
Well, it
makes sense.
doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I mean, you can take out, you know, 50% out of free cash and 50% out of stabilization.
Right.
I'm just trying to
The agenda
figure
is
out
whether or
how
not-
we can pay for some of these things.
Right, Eloise, I think we're getting a little bit away of our agenda, and these are decisions that truly, I don't think lie with the select board, but more of a FinCom. So
Or
tonight
capital planning.
and capital planning. So tonight was just to talk about the town meeting warrant and what had come in today. So I just don't want.
Okay, in that
I don't want
case,
to stray.
can you tell me by April 1 if you need any override questions?
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I
Kathy.
mean, if you wait till town meeting and something passes, that means you're gonna have to pay for a new election.
Right, so we will I'm hoping by March 24th, which is sort of our last-ish meeting before things are gonna be in, that we will know the answer to that question.
We may
Thank
have
you.
to have March 31st, but
Yeah.
yes.
Yep, all of March. Okay,
We're gonna get to that.
awesome. Thanks, Eloise.
Thank
Um,
you.
Yep. For town meeting, especially since I think some of these will be longer conversations at town meeting than they used to be, because I'm kind of hoping that we have a decent turnout and people ask questions. I think we might start off by thinking that this will be a 2-night town meeting. And that I would request that we try to organize the agenda so that all fiscal and budget related stuff are on night 1. And mass general law exception and bylaw and stuff is on day 2. So that people who are really into money and numbers can show up on day 1, and people who are really into bylaws and state adoption of rules can come on night 2, and fun people like me who really like both of those can go to both nights.
So you're saying financial and budget articles day 1?
Yeah.
And
And the mass general law, the
bylaws.
bylaw stuff on day 2.
what does everybody else think?
Town
Thank
meeting
you
is
for
May,
asking.
right?
Thank you, Kristen.
May
Yeah,
6th.
either that
I
or
will
make,
be out of town May 6th. I will not be accessible anyway, so
can you,
just to throw that out there.
can you make that into a
No, I
motion,
cannot, I
Scott?
cannot zoom, well, you can't
I
zoom in anyways.
will make that a motion. I will make a motion that we direct the town administrator to organize the warrant articles in a way that the fiscal and money numbers come first and the bylaws and mass general law adoptions come second. So that, and that we overtly then, well, we'll start with that. Because I think the second one is we overtly have a stopping spot that even if we get it 8:45, we're done all the fiscal ones, that on day 2, we're doing the bylaw ones.
We've done that in the past.
Mhm.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, roll call?
Hawkins, aye.
Keefe,
Stone eye.
I appreciate that.
That means I'm vice chair, aren't I?
Yep,
That means that on the second night, if there's things that have to be done, then I have to end up doing them.
yep.
Okay.
All right.
So I just as a side note on the 5-member select board, could you, when there's important things like that, could you possibly include all 3 members for future reference
What, was there something you
in
weren't
the
included on?
discussion? I was not included in that discussion.
You were at the meeting.
No, she was not. That
She
was
was
a
at the-
meeting she did not attend,
Oh,
but it
sorry.
clearly was on the agenda that to be discussed.
Yes, but at the last minute, I was told that I could come to the meeting virtually, but that I had already made other plans because I was told before that there was not going to be any hybrid. So therefore, I was not at that meeting to discuss it, and I was a little disappointed that you went ahead and made the decision without all 3 members. And I think anybody, in a 3-member board, as far as it is 3 members right now anyway, I think they would be disappointed if big decisions like that were made without all 3 members. So just as a side note, I appreciate you thinking of whatever 3rd member is there next time.
So
That's
are
all.
we good on the warrant
Yep.
discussion? All right. So next up, under new business, our first item was to possible vote the town administrator contract. We are deferring that to a future meeting. All right. So up next is the discussion vote on the select board annual town submission, which is in the folder.
It wasn't
So, well, no, it was not in the folder.
Was the
I
folder
forbid.
last I locked, yeah.
I couldn't find it.
Whoops. Well, then I guess that,
Too many hands in the folder.
I guess then that is a next week one. Are we good?
Free
You
time.
guys review them anyways, don't you, for accuracy? and-
Yes.
Okay, all right. So can we, just move that till, well, 10th on that one. All right. And I will tell you that I wrote it, and everything that I took, I basically lifted directly out of Kristen's TA reports. So if they're wrong, I'm blaming you. How was that? Was that good?
Totally fine.
All right, cool. All right, we already chatted about Miss Heidi. We already discussed that the next meeting, the 3rd, is canceled. We are adding the 17th as a meeting, and as Kristen pointed out a few minutes ago, we may have to do the 31st depending upon budget fund. So basically, all of March, be prepared for budget chat.
And it's been most meetings,
Yeah.
most Mondays in March for the past couple of
Correct.
years.
Yeah, so it's not that
yeah.
new. All right.
Had to meet.
So up next is to discuss the upcoming February 28th Tohoto parking needs, meeting with the DCR, Boylston Select Board people, and state reps and school committee. So Kristen, if you want to take that one, and I can chime in as well.
So there's going to be a meeting that was called, I believe, by the state reps in conjunction with the school committee about parking needs at Tohoto. They are short spaces now and will be short spaces given incoming classes. And they have called a meeting on February 28th. They have requested the town administrators, the chairs of the select boards, DCR, and the state representatives, obviously, to be there. I don't have much more information at this point other than that. They're looking to have some initial conversations on strategizing how to address the lack of parking.
The only thing that I will add is that this was a very late notice that came to Kristen and I, and only due to the kindness of the select board member from Boylston, were we included. So from the very beginning, this conversation did not arise with us. It was at the school level, the DCR level, and Boylston
Select
Select
board.
board.
and TA.
Yeah,
And then
so
send it to us.
Kristen and I kind of walked into this blind. It is a very long email with lots of forwards, lots of, references to files that don't exist in the emails. I did ask for the number of kids from first grade coming forward because I don't want to meet at the end of the month and say that we need 3 spaces and then 5 years from now, all of a sudden we need 53 spaces. So, there's nothing more else that I can add except
Yeah.
they have X amount of spaces and there's a perceived need of X more spaces. Where that money will come from, I don't know. DCR, I don't know what their input's going to be as to where the parking spaces are going to be. Maybe they'll just level the lawn and put it there. I don't know. But that information will come out. So again, this came as a bit of a surprise to Kristen and I a couple weeks ago.
So has anybody checked the regional agreement to see if something like that would be dealt with?
It's probably part of in the to-do list, but right now Kristen and I are trying to play catch up on all the emails and all the issues and trying to follow a very long email trail of who said what and is referencing what and exactly where this started from. It is my belief that the initial call went straight to DCR instead of really involving anybody else.
It is DCR land back there.
I know, but so that's where we are, and it really wasn't decided until today at the 10th hour that the meeting would be in person at Tohoto.
Correct.
So you can see things are moving slowly and all over the place.
And
More to come.
it might even be a good thing to think about if it was Berlin Memorial. Would we be involving Boylston? I don't know if that makes any difference or not.
No, but we're Tohoto is Berlin kids too. All right, so more to come on that. Probably at one of the upcoming March meetings, we'll have a bit of an update.
I think but they're doing a lease also, aren't they, Kristen? They're leasing the school Tohoto to us
I don't, know.
or-
That I
they should-
don't know. Leasing to the town of Berlin?
No, well, I guess it would be Boylston who would be leasing the school because it's in Boylston.
I think the school building actually belongs to the regional school district because they're the ones who got the loan to build it. I hate to
Okay.
think the school district built a multi-million-dollar building and then have someone else own it.
Well, we're paying the loan off though, Berlin and Boylston.
Right, but the loan itself is the name of the regional school district.
Right. I do know at some point a while back, this was going back a couple years, someone from Boylston had asked me for a copy of our lease for BMS because they were possibly going to use it as a template for BES.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know where that landed.
Well, lots more to figure out. I can't imagine that we will come to an agreement on Friday. Lots of people in the pie. And then the last one under new business is to discuss starting FY 26 Berlin Boylston Town Admin, FinCom, Select Board Chair, Budget Coordination Meetings. This was a request of Scott, Scott.
Yeah, so FinCom asked for it. Obviously, they want to do it, so wanted to bring it to the select board. We did have a group of 6 last year that met, the Berlin Boylston, 2 town admins, 2 FinCom chairs, and 2 select board chairs, just to get everybody's where they're at, what they're thinking, budget-wise, and, keep everybody up to speed.
I wouldn't do the meeting without the schools also present. I mean, that was one of the things we went down last year is all these side meetings that didn't involve everybody. And so unless there's also the representatives from the school board, it could be their chair and their admin too. I don't think that meeting has any value. That's my personal opinion. And so you two can vote otherwise, but
I think it was advantageous though, when I was doing it with Kristen, just to be able to talk with each other, the 2 town sides, just to see, what are you doing about that? This is what we're doing. It doesn't hurt to have communication like that.
Have you, so you haven't chatted with April on this at all, correct?
No, and to Scott's point, the agreement that was made was for all communication on the school side, on the district side, to go through Al to me, and all communication on the town side to go to me, to Al. So I could see without the school having involvement in this, that looks like it's circumventing that process, which was not the intent, but I think that's a good thing to point out to the FinCom.
Could you ask him?
Who?
Al,
Oh, how he feels about it?
if he'd be interested in forking over Aaron or himself, or maybe one of
School
our
committee
members
chair.
of school committee to come on, and chat. And then if he says, maybe you'll hear by FinCom, and tell them, and then you can tell us at the next meeting. But then we're starting to get into lack of time to do anything with it.
But I do think that part of the reason, and now that you're saying this, Scott, I'm thinking it through a little bit more, that part of the reason we did that was because there was a lack of transparency and we weren't really sure what was going on. And I think that this year has proven to be a much different process, and it's been really open, transparent, and productive, and we know what's going on. So I wouldn't want to give the appearance that, we're trying to, go behind the school committee's back and get information shared across towns. So, well, I can have a conversation with Al.
I also wouldn't use last year as an example of things working right. And so we might have thought the meeting had some benefits, but the end result was not a great result. I mean,
Yeah, it didn't really do anything.
right.
Okay. Well, just throw it by him. Tell him what we're thinking, because I don't want him to hear by someone watching the meeting going, oh, do you know what they're doing now? So cut him off at the pass. And just whiz them out an email if you can, please. All right.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris?
There are benefits to meeting with Boylston, even if it's not just schools. It's, once we are regionalized, but, it may be as a benefit for other things too. You know, I think that Al Ganem or the finance director should be asked if they would like to attend also.
All right, so moving down to our last item on the agenda is board questions and liaison updates. So Scott, you're up first.
I have an item, but I want to wait to see if you raise it first, because I think it falls into things you tend to cover. So I will hold off for a moment.
Oh, this is gonna be a test.
I know. I have it written down. You might not be able to read my writing, but I have it written down.
You
So
can't, yeah, no one can read my writing. It's a tad off of hieroglyphics. All right, so I'll go, and we're gonna say probably not. The first thing is that I wanted, and I know that the camera can't pick it up, but in everybody's email, everybody's mail, Berlin residents, was a stay connected with Catch Connect that talked about our relationship with WRTA and how people can get rides for $2. New service began January 17th. And will be fare free until June 30th. And then July 1st starts the $2 a ride. So just wanted to bring this up to people's attention. I know we've pushed it and it's out there.
And
Was this it?
No. If we could ask the Council on Aging about how that overlaps with our existing van and whether existing van services might not be needed as much anymore or needed at all anymore.
I can answer that actually.
Oh, good.
We don't have a van driver at the moment. Unfortunately, we are recruiting. And this is really going to mostly service Berlin to Hudson. There is one point in Marlboro that it services, but you have to then connect to other transport. So the van will continue to provide service to those other areas that are not part of the Catch Connect.
Oh, I didn't think Catch Connect was a dedicated route. It is a dedicated route?
No, there's one point in Marlboro that it will drop off at. The others are door to door Berlin to Hudson,
Yeah, just
depending on where they need to go, not dedicated.
yeah,
Right.
this just says that it's in partnership with Metro West Regional Transit Authority.
And so it's not going to service Worcester County. That's been our issue all along. So the van would still service those other places, but this would at least connect us to Highland Commons, which we weren't able to get to before, or other appointments in the Metro West area without taxing our van for that. So we could focus on the Worcester County route.
And it may be, I mean, you know, this is saying Hudson Berlin service operate Monday through Friday, 7:15 in the morning to 7:15 at night. And the big thing that I think we don't offer is Saturdays. So this is 8 o'clock in the morning to 6. And addresses within Berlin and Hudson, as well as key points of interest in the city of Marlboro.
Yeah, I will likely bring this back as an issue when we talk about the Council on Aging budget.
Okay. All right, Concom, the nice thing is that things are frozen, so there's really not a lot to do. They did have some inquiries about Wheeler Pond, AKA Bonazzoli, that they're looking to. They may reach out to Fred. I guess there's a culvert assessment that might be needed. I did check with them. They obviously don't have any warrants on the on our May meeting. Maplewood is chugging along. Highland Ridge is frozen, nothing to do. There's some private issues between neighbors that are ongoing. Powder House Hill, the conservation, the document is review. Trail maintenance, not a lot because the weather isn't in any good session as to do anything with. And rec, again, due to illness, they'll meet in March, and I totally blew off energy, so apologies to them. That's all I got. Scott, do you want to go? Or Chris, do you want to go?
I don't have any updates, but I have something I want to read.
Let me do mine first, Chris, if that's okay, so that we can sort of end with yours. I have a, I believe, shoot, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up my phone to look at my calendar to make sure I have the date correct. The rail trail is doing an in-person meeting here, actually, Wednesday night. To go over some of the things that we paid for a plan of some sort. We got sort of a grant. They've done most of that work. They will be doing a public hearing to show some of the things they've learned, some of the questions still out there. But it will be here. And sadly, my notes are not clear enough and I couldn't find it quick enough exactly what time that starts. I believe it's in this room even.
No, downstairs.
It's in the
A downstairs
training
training room, okay.
Can probably get you that if you give me 1 second.
And I think Concom is on the agenda.
7 o'clock.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Room 114, which is the or the public safety meeting and training room downstairs, because we have FinCom here.
Right.
And they are on our March 10th, to talk about the rail trail
Right.
update, so.
And so if I get the order of operations, is that sort of a public meeting to get feedback on some of the stuff that they have done? They will use that meeting then to make some adjustments and then do a presentation to us that is a sort of a more semi-permanent
Mhm.
position.
That is my understanding, and we can clarify with them.
Yep. And then I'm planning on trying to get to that. I don't know if either of the two of you would not listed it. It only occurred to me this morning that if I go and one of the two of you also go, it's a majority of the select board.
When is it, Wednesday?
It's a chance meeting.
Next week.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
talk.
Right,
It's
but
a
you also
meeting.
can't then talk at the meeting.
That's
So I
correct.
can't ask questions or ask follow-up stuff.
I'll
You
go
can
to
ask
Fin-
other people, you
Right.
just can't ask Peg.
You're good. You're good.
No, you
I'm
can't
fine.
share your opinions.
Conflict of interest for me was explained that even because when select board had a problem at FinCom, when I was on FinCom, the two of them couldn't attend and both make any comments. Matter of fact, there's even lawsuits about select board members not in Berlin, making like facial expressions while someone presented. And that was considered, the rules do get sort of silly at times, but they're there for very good reasons. And so, but if again, FinCom
I'll go to
is
FinCom.
probably
I'll
a
have-
better one
I'll have
to
fun at
be at
FinCom.
anyway.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, is that it?
thanks. Yep.
All right, Chris, you're up.
Okay, Scott, I just wanted to say that the Council on Aging van only goes to Worcester, and the Metro West van does not go to Worcester. So if you have appointments, doctor's appointments in Worcester, then you have to take the van.
When we approved the van, it was because you could get Worcester Regional Transit to take you to Worcester places, and we needed somebody that went across the county borders. Our problem was that we were near the border. And so if Worcester County Regional Transit will take care of Worcester, and this new one takes care of not Worcester, we'll go back down the path of whether or not our van is needed, especially since we've not been able to keep a driver substantially for a period of time. And so we're unreliable at best. And so,
Well, they're trying to improve it. You know,
Well, that's a discussion for another day.
yes. Okay, I did have something I wanted to share with you both because I turned this into Eloise and James by email last night. To the Honorable Berlin Town Clerk and Assistant Town Clerk, I've learned a lot from the 15 years I spent on school committee, the 3 years I spent on the finance committee, and the almost 9 years on select board. I've done my best to represent all of the residents of our small town in the decisions I have voted for as a member of each of these boards. I was first elected to the select board position in May of 2016. I will be resigning from that position on March 1st, 2025. I'm honored to have been supported by so many good people during my tenure, and I truly have enjoyed my time representing these wonderful people and the town of Berlin. Not just my neighbors, not just my friends, but all the people in Berlin. Respectfully, Christine Keefe, and I have it dated today. So I just wanted to let you all know if all goes well, which I assume it's going to. I'm trying to end my health insurance through the town, and I believe it should be stopped by the 1st or shortly, maybe by Monday. I don't know how they work it, but and I have gotten new health insurance, so I was just waiting for that to kick in. So thank you very much to all of you. And if you need anything, please feel free, reach out, especially this week. I'm still on the board till, I guess, Saturday. So let me know if there's anything more I can do for you before that date.
Well, thank you greatly for your service. I've served with you on both FinCom and here on Select Board. You bring the sort of third view that I don't always have. And I appreciate what you have managed to do.
Well,
You'll be missed.
I think we all have different constituents. I hope that you will work to help the ones that supported me for elections and re-elections and that kind of thing. So I'll tell them to reach out to you.
Absolutely. I appreciate everything that you've done for the town. As I'm dying. All right. Anything else? We need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yes. Very good. Second,
All right, roll call.
Hawkins, aye.
He-fi.
Stone eye. See you March 10th.
Yep. Thank you
Maybe.
very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Chris.
Bye-bye.
So, yes,
Um,
unfortunately.
Well, hold on, we're still on Zoom.
No, I just